Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sino. I'm joined here by my friend Delta Bacon. I hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. We're bringing back some round five action of the ESA Cup Season X. How are you doing, my friend Delta?
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty
pretty
excited.
excited.
Should be a good day. We're in knockout stage territory, aren't we?
We're
We're right at
right
the
at the
business
business
end
end
of the
of the
Swiss
Swiss
bracket.
bracket.
All
All
these
these
teams,
teams,
round
round
five,
five,
they've
they've
gone
gone
right the
right the
way
way
through,
through,
and
and
here we
here we
are
are
now,
now,
right on the sharp edge with
edge
our
with our
first
first
two match.
match
Sign
sign
up
up
Sfam
Sfam
and
and
CrownZero
CrownZero
console.
console.
In both teams fighting here. They're both mid or lower mid table, so they're gonna have to fight out a little bit to be able to push to that last stage, or they're going home early, and they needed to pick the right maps to be able to do so. So, out of the three maps on the board today, we saw some very expected picks in Cafe and Nighthaven, the two most picked maps in this league, alongside with a little bit of a curveball, some border action as well. A little bit of a condensed map, meaning they're going to have to be forced to be very dense, very heavily. So this should be a great lineup.
Yeah, a
Yeah, a
couple of
couple of
really
really
interesting
interesting
map
map
picks,
picks,
as you
as you
say.
say.
There's,
There's,
I know,
we've
we've
got
got two
two
teams
teams
which are
which are
coming
coming
right
right
into the
into the
business,
business end,
and
and
this
this
is,
is,
it's
it's
do
do
or
or
die
die
kind
kind
of
of
siege.
siege.
And so they're
So they're
going to
going to
want to
want
be
to be
playing
playing
to
to
their
their
strengths.
strengths.
I
I
think it's
think it's
quite
quite
noticeable
noticeable
that
that
we're
we're
seeing
seeing,
maps
maps
like
like
Lair
Lair
get
get
taken
taken
off.
off.
Lair,
Lair
it's
is
not the
not the
most
most
common
common
one in
one
the
in the
world,
world,
but
but
quite
quite
noticeably,
noticeably,
whilst
whilst
Crown
Crown
10
10
have
have
picked it
picked it
twice,
twice,
they've
they've
actually
actually
only
only
ever
ever
lost
lost
on
on
that,
that,
whereas
whereas
their
their
opponents,
opponents,
SFAM,
SFam,
they've
they've
only
only
ever
ever
won
won
on
on
it.
it.
So
So
it's
it's
interesting to
interesting to
see
see
that
that
actually,
actually,
they're
they're
playing
playing
against
against
their
their
opponents
opponents
in
in
the
the
map
map
bans
bans
even
even
there,
there,
looking to
looking to
ban out
ban
their
out their
strongest
strongest
maps.
maps.
Border,
Border,
bit of
bit
an
of an
interesting
interesting
one.
one.
It's
Can
can be
be
quite
quite
free
free
flowing.
flowing.
There's a
There's a
lot
lot
of
of
verticality
verticality
to
to
that
that
game.
game.
It
It
should be
should be
very
very
interesting to
interesting
see
to see
how
how
that
that
pans
pans
out
out
for
for
Crown
Crown
10,
10,
especially
especially
on
on
their
their
defense,
defense,
how
how
they'll
they'll
counter
counter
this
this
SFAM,
SFam,
who
who
need to
need
be
to
in a
be in a
bit of
bit of
ascendancy
ascendancy
coming
coming
off the
off the
back of
back
a
of a
losing
losing
streak.
streak.
I think speaking on that defense point, a lot of shield ops have been prioritized in this season. Whether it's Blackbeard's new change that brings it into the roster, whether it's Monty or Blitz, they have been a crucial part of the attacking roster generally. And seeing the operators who can counter them, such as Goyo, the ones with the C4s, the impacts, you have to be able to really certainly maneuver the map to your liking to be able to counter these shield ops and be able to move towards them so they don't take so much map control in such a short span of time, because that's what they are specifically made for. If Azami can remain on the board for most of these maps, I think the defenders will have a better chance against these shield ops, and the utility is going to need to be prioritized really to be able to close down on the attackers and not let them free roam and get all of the space they need to be able to set up for a perfect execute.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I
it's
mean, it's
very
very
well
well
said. I
said.
mean,
I mean,
shield
shield
ups. I
ups. I
mean,
mean,
I
I
think
think
for
for
probably
probably
the
the
best
best
part of a
part of a
year
year
and
and
a
a
half
half
now,
now,
they've been
they've been
very
very
strong
strong
in the
in the
current
current
Rainbow
Rainbow
Six
Six
Siege
Siege
meta,
meta,
particularly in
particularly
the
in the
ESA,
ESA,
where
where
we've
we've
seen
seen
operators
operators
like the
like the
Blackbeard,
Blackbeard,
like the
like the
Monty,
Monty,
and the
and the
Blitz
Blitz,
all
all
on
on
attack,
attack,
all
all
being
being
used
used
to
to
expert
expert
upon,
upon,
particularly
particularly
in
in
last
last
season's
season's
grand
grand
final,
final,
where we
where we
saw
saw
Blackbeard
Blackbeard
being
being
used
used
incredibly
incredibly
well
well
very
very
soon
soon
after
after
their
their
addition.
addition.
But you
But you
can't
can't
discount the
discount the
clash
clash
aspect.
aspect.
It's not
It's not
just the
just the
attackers
attackers
who
who
get
get
them, is
them,
it?
is it?
As we
As we
move
move
on,
on,
we've got
we've
the
got the
map
map
bans
bans
there. We
there.
are
We
going
are
to be
going to be
looking
looking
at
at
a
a
border,
border,
then a
then a
Night
Night
Haven
Haven
Labs,
Labs,
and
and
if
if
we
we
can't
can't
separate
separate
these
these
two
two
teams
teams
by
by
then,
then,
we'll be
we'll be
looking
looking
to
to
go to
go to
Cafe
Cafe
Dostoevsky.
Dostoevsky.
But let's
But
have
let's
a
have a
look at
look at
what our
what our
staff
staff
think
think
of
of
these
these
two
two
teams as
teams
we
as we
lead
lead
into
into
it,
it,
because
because
these
these
two
two
teams,
teams,
they're
they're
dividing
dividing
opinions
opinions
somewhat,
somewhat,
aren't
aren't
they,
they,
Sino?
Sino?
Yeah, an 88 to 13 percentage. Wow, that is divided indeed. That's probably one of the most divided predictions I've seen by this time. So, SFAM are going to need to live up to the expectations that they're bringing here. 88% of the staff behind them. They should be able to bring it home if they can. We've seen them take home some of these maps very easily, and we've seen them struggle in overtime. So I do think whatever team is more up for grabs on this lineup should be the one to be able to claim the victory, because nothing is sealed via just predictions. It's all about that hard grit and effort that you'll be putting into your matchup.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
will
will
point out
point
that
out
I
that I
made this
made this
prediction. I'm
prediction. I'm
fairly
fairly
sure I
sure I
made this
made this
prediction
prediction
without
without
having
having
watched
watched
Crown
Crown
Zero's
Zero's
match
match
against
against
Utility.
Utility.
That
That
match
match
against
against
Utility
Utility
last
last
week,
week,
they
they
went
went
to
to
unlimited
unlimited
overtime
overtime
twice.
twice.
Two
Two
of the
of the
three
three
maps were
maps were
taken
taken
by a
by a
factor
factor
of
of
10
10
rounds
rounds
to
to
8.
8.
So,
So,
they've
they've
come
come
into
into
this
this
this matchup
matchup
off the
off the
back
back
of
of
some
some
incredible
incredible
pressure,
pressure,
where they've
where
had
they've
to
had to
show
show
some
some
real
real
resilience.
resilience.
And you've
And
got
you've
to
got to
say, Crown Zero. they're a
They're a
team
team
that's on
that's
the
on the
ascendancy.
ascendancy.
They've
They've
shown that
shown that
resilience.
resilience.
They've
They've
been
been
fighting
fighting
knockout
knockout
siege for
siege for
2
two
rounds
rounds
now.
now.
Whereas
Whereas
Sfam,
Sfam,
they've
they've
kind of
kind
had
of
a
had a
fall
fall
from
from
grace
grace
by
by
now.
now.
Think I have one main question here. We've seen that 10-8 ratio. We've seen them go to double OT a couple of times here. Do you think we're going to see it this game or this series in general?
Well, it's
Well,
on
it's
the
on the
board.
board.
It
It
depends on
depends on
whether
whether
Bose is
Bose is
watching the
watching the
stream
stream
or
or
not.
not.
Bose
Bose
in the
in the
chat,
chat,
he's
he's
always
always
begging
begging
for
for a
unlimited
limited
OT
OT
from
from
these
these
teams.
teams.
I've
I've
personally
personally
cleared my
cleared my
schedule.
schedule
That's
for
3 o'clock in the
in the
morning
morning
just for
just for
these
these
guys.
guys.
I mean, hopefully my schedule is also clear, but I mean, I'm not trying to go to 13 or teen. I don't know. I'm not trying to look at these heavy rounds, but hopefully this is going to be a good lineup without an insane amount of infinite overtime, and they should be able to lock in here and bring it home for us. I mean, they're taking forever. Hopefully, we're not going to be looking at an insane amount of rehosts because I know CrownZero loves their rehosts as I've casted them before, and I think I got up to 4 rehosts with. So I think this lineup here, as they're going to go through all 3 maps, it's going to be a little confusing here for their rosters and their setup. So Border is a little bit of a condensed map, or 2 floors and lots of rooms to hide away in if they can learn how to get away from those drones and all of the utility that locate the roamers. Looking at the second map, if you do look at Nighthaven, it's a little bit more wide. It's a lot more able to be played and molded to the attacker's liking with the verticality, with external windows. It is something that is not impossible to get kills outside before you make your way on into building. Cafe, if we do head on over to that third map, it's going to be definitely some external play as that third floor site is mostly just windows and the attackers are going to have to differentiate how they're going to want to attack Cigar or the backside to be able to take the site and try to get the bomb down.
Yeah, it's all a wonderful game of deception, really, when we go to Cafe Dostoevsky. But first, we've got to slog through 2 whole maps to get there. Border, as you said, is very expensive, but it's not a map that lends itself to really customizing the site. I think there's a couple of very there's not really that much in the way of variation in terms of how you hold the favored site, the top site, and it's a map that's usually decided in your secondary and tertiary sites more than anything else, just because of how strong that top site can be. And here we go. Border, first going to be the first venue for these 2 teams to meet battle in. As we go into this knockout siege, CrownZero coming in very strongly. Sfam notably have lost their last 4 maps consecutively, so they're coming in off the back of a massive losing streak, and it's going to be interesting to see just how they respond to the kind of pressure which CrownZero they're surely going to bring.
Mean, that pressure is definitely something that is going to be built up as they're going to try to either end it or continue to further this absolute demonic of a run. They're going to have to lock in here and be able to push it because if they cannot, they're going home nice, easy, nice and simple. There's no doubt about it, honestly. And both teams here having a little bit of the same run, a little bit inverted. One of them starting off with a win streak and one starting off to a lose streak. They're both going to have a lot to fight for here. And taking a look at that first ban, Monty gets taken out, and I don't think that's too much of a surprise. And I think that next one is definitely going to be a Blackbeard.
Yeah, I mean it's not the hardest prediction in the world, is it? I know. I mean, yeah, I mean it's interesting though, isn't it? Because these shields, like yes, they are powerful. Yes, the shield meta is strong, but it has started to loosen a little bit, and I'm not sure what it is in particular with the teams that play here, but they seem so nervous about shields that they'll ban them to the exclusion of everything else, which opens the game right up. It means that there's so much attacking flexibility, because if you're banning out the Monty, you're very specifically not banning Breach Enable, you're not banning the Thatcher, you're not banning out a Thermite or an Ace or a Maverick or anything like that. You're very specifically saying that the game is going to be won on more frags than utility.
Taking a look at the bans here, 3 out of 4 bans are on shield ops, which honestly, I think I'm
Yeah.
going to have to second your point here. This is crucial. Valkyrie is definitely an essential ban for this map, but honestly, is the shield op meta that big where we need to take out 3 of them? Now we're leaving open the Dokkaebi, we're leaving open the Jackal. Any form of roam clearing is going to be an absolute breeze for CrownZero unless they don't know how to coordinate. And I think they're really starting to prioritize these shield ops. Monty doesn't have as big as an effect as Blackbeard, I would personally say. himself just because he doesn't have a fully automatic AR waiting behind that shield. So I do think they're blowing out of proportion how hard the shield op meta is, but is it really going to be something that is going to be a deciding factor, or the roam clearing ops remaining on the board going to be something that is more impactful?
Yeah, notably you can see there 4 versus 5 as we have someone drop immediately, and a couple more will be dropping. So this is going to go to a rehost, and I was quite looking forward to see how they were going to set up the site there. But yeah, a lot of these shields, being dropped off, it enables so many other strategies to come to the fore that I think it's really a test of how creative these teams can be, both in defense and on attack. Clash getting banned out isn't really the worst thing in the world because there's a lot of ways you can counter a clash, and I would personally argue that's a bit of a misban because you can, as an attacker, you've got the option to go flank around. You've got things like nomads. You've got all these different weird and wonderful ways to try and root out a clash. Only the strongest clash players can really survive against a dedicated attack. So I would argue that banning out clash, it's maybe indicative of potentially a bit of a lack of faith in Sfam's own ability to take it off the board.
I mean, the Clash was an interesting band, but did you see the picks for the attackers? They had a fuse coming along on the board for an upstairs push. I'm honestly kind of concerned for what the play was going to be forming here. We're going to send in the cluster charges through doors on the site door, try to get rid of the bandit shaker. I don't know. We've seen a little bit of confusing things and it's starting to build up. I think we're going to be in for a series or maybe just a map of tomfoolery before we start to get into the actual competitive rounds. But looking how we're bringing in clash bands and we're bringing in fuse picks, I think we're going to be in for a little bit of an interesting lineup.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, also on the defensive side as well, Sino. You've got the fuse picks and things like that, but you're also looking at comparing that. There's a very trap heavy meta. You've got the Frost and the Goyo looking to deny access rather than really just block it off. With those traps, but then also there was a sentry pick. So that's a bit of a pick where you're looking more towards, okay, maybe it's all intel tools, maybe it's prox alarms, and maybe it's cameras and that kind of thing. It's not necessarily a commitment to using any specific utility. Would that maybe be better served by a Legion or something like that? So it's an interesting pick for SFAM for round one to go right ahead and say, we're going to go take a sentry.
I mean, I think Sentry is one of those flex picks that if you have a team that's well coordinated enough to be able to adapt your roster to that, it's an absolute amazing pick. You have two sets of generalized utility, whether it's a C4 paired up with a shield or a proximity paired up with a shield. They are absolutely beautiful to be bringing into the rosters. It's going to be something that is very underrated. And we see most PC teams do this in the earlier stages of a round before they start to bring in the more staple rosters where they start bringing in operators that don't have double general utilities. But I do think that Sentry is a very good pick in a map such as Board, a very condensed map that needs general utility all over. So let's see how they'll play it out.
Yeah, particularly when you consider that on that top site, which is where we were and where we'll return to with it being a rehost armory lock at that top site, realistically, you've got 4, 5, potentially even 6, if you do in fact count the window in between lockers. Uh, yeah, you've got potentially 6 ways to egress onto site, and that's before you even consider potentially 7 if hatch goes unreinforced. So there's so many different ways to actually access the site before you even get into breaching walls and things like that. It becomes a real test for a team of 5, even with full utility, to go right ahead and say, right, we can cover this whole site in utility. So it's a matter of where they're going to be looking and where they don't necessarily want to be looking. And that's why I think maybe if the sentries bringing along things like your bulletproof cameras, maybe things like your alarms, that's where they're leaning into the intelligence game and saying, rather than a legion, rather than those audio cues, which can get missed in gunfire, we're going to go for something very clear. We're going to go for these intelligence tools.
I think honestly, the intelligence tools part, what has to start to realize, or what the teams start to have to realize here, is that there's a lot of areas such as security where they're going to have to they're going to have to really prioritize the push of utility in these corners, because if you lose areas such as jail, if you lose areas such as security in general, you are going to have a big problem when it comes to pushing onto site, because the attackers can sit back, drone out, use their utility, and be able to get in the map, get in the building, and try to force a plant, whether it's near the B chassis on default or a full east push where they'll have the cover from the AC ventilations window and have everybody else watching them from the catwalk or the general area of just east. So you do really have to question if both teams really know how they want to use their utility, how they want to use their drones, their cameras. But that's a question to be answered for this upcoming round, as we are going to see a good amount of utility almost instantly. As you mentioned before, Sentry is going to be an absolute beautiful pick, and already we go right back down to a 4v5. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's interesting that we're seeing, and we do apologise, that we're not able to just jump straight into the game on this. We are seeing players drop, at the start of the round. It's unfortunate to see, but what I was talking about is that mirror setup. It's not something that you see overly often. Quite a lot of teams you'll see, both in comp and in ranked, and just in general gameplay. On this top side, they'll look to full reinforce there, and they'll play the mirror maybe in security, maybe looking elsewhere. They're not gonna be too bothered about opening this wall and using it for peaks. But here you can see the mirror as we go back through the round. You can see them using it to actively dissuade these attackers from both aggressing onto that balcony and into CCTV. Opening that wall up a bit more fully, I think, would be preferable, because then you've got full sight lines. But even so, that's an incredibly strong angle to hold, but it's a risky one if CrownZero can react appropriately.
I think they're bringing back the OG strats, a blast from the past. I think that's the Canadian Mira. I might be mistaken, but very old here. C4 toss, a little bit confusing here. He just misses it close on the window frame. Glass is being brought here, but he's executed. Surely the man advantage has now been defeated, and it is right back up to even as Rashi gets a double kill right before he is soon after refragged. What a ballsy run out. You would have thought the attackers heard him just laying it into that door frame that he couldn't just get past. But they're going to have bodies at a disadvantage now. The defenders losing crazy amounts of HP here, and they're going to have to choose to either get aggressive or sit back and take it easy until the attackers are going to start to drone and try to make their way towards site. But as we speak on that, there will be a kill here for Scopes as he takes out Zorino, and now the defenders HP deficit, a man deficit, and now they're going to have to bring it back slowly but surely.
Yeah, they've done very well, Sfam, so I think survive up until this point. They've done really well there, using the Goyo to just now deny these attackers from moving through the site. Starting to just have a little moment to themselves and say, right, okay, we've done that first bit, we've done what we needed to do, but it's not going to work, as we see Nikki taking out Ellie, and now it's down to a 1v3 as the mirror of Remy. They're now all alone. They're going to get pushed from two separate angles, and they're getting droned out. They're really missing that fifth player right around now as they start to sneak it, kind of just nestle into defense there, nestle into security. They'll swing out, but it won't come to anything as Scopes will pick up yet another onto the mirror, and CrownZero, they'll stamp their authority on round one.
Interesting play here. They were gifted an absolute beauty of a man advantage very early on to the round. They briefly lost it. That could have been crucial here if they had brought it back, but that quick run out really did make sure that they had it on end here. But they couldn't reel it in. They had the advantage. So we know that Sfam has the aggression needed to be able to get the first pick, maybe the next. But as of right now, the attackers did have an absolute amazing job of sitting back, droning, getting the refrags, and relaxing. No stress, no pressure whatsoever. They let the play build up, and they were perfect when it comes to the aspect of time and getting that plant down, which they didn't even need to do in a 1v3 situation.
Yeah, interestingly, going for basically the exact same setup is Sfam, which suggests to me that their mentality is that, okay, we tried that and we lost it, but we lost it because we didn't have all five. So let's go back and let's try that again, rather than moving to a different site and saying, let's do something a little bit different. So it's interesting, that response there. CrownZero, I think they did well, but they weren't hindered, let's say, by Sfam going down a man prematurely. They are going to go with a slightly different loadout though. Dipsy switching from the Glass over actually onto Ascent, so it's going to be a different approach to this same site. So I hope Sfam, they're not expecting the exact same kind of push. And CrownZero, their intel game, hopefully that'll pick up a little bit, because the sentry swing, well, that should have been called out, shouldn't it, Sino?
It shouldn't have. It should have been, really. The smoke was a little bit too short for the Glass to be able to have full coverage of that security door as well. Sometimes you just got to back up and say, we're good to take a little bit of patience here, but we just didn't see that from that attacking roster, and it could have went really, really bad for CrownZero if they weren't up a man when the round started here. But we're taking them a little bit too seriously for this first round, because now it looks like they're definitely taking it serious as they're using the Rotero charges to burn the shields. Heavy amounts of intel and a quick one tap to take care of Zay, and that is the break room pressure completely relieved. The same Mira is going to be the next point of attack, or this Frost sitting close on jail, but just look at the amounts of intel that are flooding in. Flora's really trying to push the Mira off to be able to get this ace set up to blow up the Black Mirror, and from now, they are going to have a bit of a better attacking round set up here in terms of using their utility, droning out, and just taking their sweet old time.
Yeah, but notably not able to deal with the mirror window quite so early as they did last time round, and unable to really take control of CC. Still, we see, yes, holding there where Rashi was playing. Rashi now downed by Scopes, having a really good opening to the game. Is Scopes there? Here in CC, they escape a little bit from those bullets that start raining in from multiple angles. They're taking damage from every which way, and all they can do is beat a hasty retreat.
A quick little seek of asylum here from the Frost. Lost a little bit of her HP, but she'll be alive to see another day. Loses even more HP here, and the only one that looks to be in a steady position here is the Wamai. 100 HP. He has the discs impacts in hand, but as I say that, that's a quick headshot from the Frost. Takes care of Loki, and that is some of the pressure relieved here. They're still down one singular man, but as the clock is starting to tick down, they have slightly less than a minute to get an execute going here, and they're going to have to make it quite perfect if they want to grow their differential to just 2 here. Flora's really trying to get aggressive. That's a triple kill for him. Frost for triple as well. 2v2, quick flick, but Wamai taken care of by Nikita, but that is Frost for a quad. Is that an ace on the board? And she will find it. What the hell just happened?
What a round. What bounce back. Frost there, they were playing CC. I think that was the position that Rashi was playing in round 1. So that was the position that presumably Frost was always supposed to play. And what they've done there is they've seen, off so many attackers, they've taken out the early entry. They've escaped so many bullets, come from so many different directions, managed to make their way back through a rotate, back through security and onto site. And what they've done there is pulled off an ace in the first 2 rounds of the game. Take a bow.
Honestly, you couldn't have said it better. Take a bow indeed. An ace. Just honestly, there's no better way to get around back in blood. You lost the first one due to a man disadvantage. We thought we were going to see a second win in a row for CrownZero, but it just didn't happen. What a shot, or shots, plural, as everything he was hitting were headshots and nothing but headshots. Perfect use of utility there, as the Mirror really used her C4 to just divide the attackers, forcing the Flores to the site armory door, and the rest having to seek refuge around the corner near security door. A little bit of an interesting round, but this is starting to get better and better as the plot is starting to build up. We're seeing aggression being brought from both teams, and an ace is surely a way to start off the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's where you stamp your authority, isn't it? That's where you say, this is who I am, this is what I'm about. CrownZero, they're going to have to bounce back quickly from that. They can't let that affect themselves too much, even though they did go down to a 3v1 and somehow lost it there towards the end. Sfam, they're going for a very top-heavy setup here. Absolutely key on this site, really, to maintain vert control as a defender for as long as possible. And CrownZero, it looks like they're going for a very passport-heavy first 30 seconds, but it's going to get caught out. And that's a ram that's been caught out. That's a vital operator for vert, but they won't go fully down just yet. Rashi will go fully down. They'll be laying on the ground for the next 3 minutes as Dipsy takes them off the boards. But Loki, they're safe. They're going to get rezzed.
Do not go gentle into that good night, as the first pick would have been brutal onto this ram, but a nice quick readaptation here by the Buck. Decides to remold the passport door to his liking. I was just saying good things about you. Come on. Not paying attention to the passport double door as a quick headshot from the Malusi lands a quick refrag. And now the defenders have the upper hand here. They have the ram at 20 HP, meaning a C4 and an impact of any kind will get a quick kill, but that's not the case. Scopes with a quick shot onto Ellie, and now the attackers again gaining a grip onto Sfam.
Yeah, CrownZero, despite hang on, we've got the drone there, and you can see the red dot. That's going to be so clearly there, and that is where it counts as Fleeks takes out Zerino. Very, very unfortunate for the defender there to give themselves away quite like that. But here we go, as we see them starting to aggress into the balcony and now downstairs. So they're going to avoid the vert control for now. Not really wanting that
Oh,
fight, are they?
he's right behind him. He's gonna go for a flank, completely looking for the prone, and he just knows. What a quick shot here by the Warden. Double kill from the Malusi to quickly reel it back in. Sfam, who are these guys? They just clutch any round. They were at a two-man deficit, and a quick flick to be able to get into the site. They tried to do something here for CrownZero, but CrownZero completely got too aggressive, completely ignored the fact that there was a Warden upstairs. So they tried to just have a man upstairs waiting for the flank, but apparently he is just too good for that quick flick. But what an interesting round. I don't even understand what just happened here. They had two men on the clock. They had the time in their hands, and they just completely threw it away.
Yeah, 2 rounds in a row now. We've seen CrownZero unable to press a man advantage, and Sfam, they're just starting to when the backs are against the wall, you see a 3K there on the replay. When their backs are against the wall, it they're just able to really double down in a way that we've not really seen them do so far. I think both of these teams maybe thrive on that kind of knockout siege mentality where it's not just another game. This is do or die, and it can bring out a completely different side to these players. And I think that's what we're seeing from SFAM with some absolutely fantastic individual performances. Effectively, 2 rounds played for Yes over on Lagoyo, and they're already 7 kills to the good.
I think essentially the teammates you want to have are the ones that can take initiative in the right times and the ones that know what operators to be bringing. And honestly, that's the only thing we're seeing here for SFAM. You have different players with their own star shows. The first round having that Frost, or the second round having that Frost, and the second having the Warden. Same player, but just absolutely beautiful in terms of getting aggressive when it is needed. But taking a look at this current map, we're going to see a Solus, which is going to be amazing for Plantanile, but we don't see much of her these days since her most recent nerf. So I think she's going to be a little bit of an interesting addition to this site.
Yeah, typically when you see a Solus, historically, you always saw the Solus playing below, ready to deny a breach on the floor above. Here, we're going with a different method. As you see, this is vertical control from the defense, absolutely crucial on this site, as it is with most sites really on this map. But they're going to start bandit tricking and trying to deny one main way into this site. Because if they open that wall, you've effectively lost first. Even if you don't lose full control, not having control of that specific area behind short wall, it kills your ability to defend. And there's another bandit trick. That's going to be successful as well, as Ace throws a second charge to be denied. Only one remaining, and it looks like they're really short on breach enablement here. CrownZero, a minute in, and they're just standing outside the door.
Almost looking as the first blood for Goyo might come in. It's the second time he's been down, but not finished yet. But what's the use of bringing 4 flashes and 2 smokes if you can't even get the verticality taken care of here? Defenders absolutely getting ran for their money here on the walls, but finally the breach gets opened. One down defender and one at very low HP. The attackers need to make a play here because if they don't get this in a timely fashion, they're going to be struggling later in the round here. Almost a quick refrag, but a second down this time is going to be confirmed. Loki gets a kill of his own. Brava and IQ quickly walking in here. Zerino since then has dropped the hatch to establish some site control, but a quick shot here by DK will get another on the board. 3v5. We've seen this situation again, and now it'll be a 1v5. They just don't quite know it yet. The timer runs out for the DBNO, and from now on, it'll be left to Zerino. He's 0-3. He's going to have to find 5 kills to be able to call this his. I don't like to say things are impossible, but it's surely looking very bad here for the man sitting bottom metal, locked up by his own Volcan canisters, the plant going down, and he's being held out from every possible angle, seeking refuge, but only temporarily from Customs, and that's a flawless round from CrownZero to get themselves back on the board and close out the differential.
Yeah, that was a round that was especially needed by CrownZero. A big thing, especially in Knockout Siege, of momentum. You can't let the enemy team drive any momentum, and both of these teams have had some fantastic rounds over the last 4 rounds. There's absolutely nothing to pick between them, and a lot of that is because of the heroics from from Yesvon. Well, playing on the Frost again as we return to that top floor. Obviously, last time we were here, it was round 2, and they picked up an ace round 2 of the game. So, not saying we've got expectations, but, just looking at you, yes. But yeah, I mean, both of these teams, I think they're full of a lot of hero characters, and they're both going to be very patently aware that this is it. And I think we're seeing Siege that reflects that.
I think honestly having that heroic form is not all that bad, but you need to have uniform playing first before you have the heroics, because if you don't, you'll have the utility being used against you before you can even react, forcing you to go into that heroic mode. Here on out, Sfam need to coordinate. They need to allow their rounds to not be defined by one man executing 5 or 3, or having to be put in a situation where one man needs to clutch repeatedly. Yes, Vaughn has stepped up to the occasion multiple times. He's 7-1 currently, but he cannot be asked of that currently when he has 2 teammates going 0-4. From here on out, more people need to take more initiatives on their hands to be able to push 4-round wins that aren't based off of one man just completely terrorizing.
Yeah, they've dropped the Goyo there for a Fenrir have Sfam. They've adapted their strategy somewhat, where rather than having this denial just straight up, if you say breach a door that it's on, or allowing for that late breach denial, or plant denial rather, depending on where it's placed, they're actually aiming to say, yo, come in, we'll hold the door open for you. But that'll then engage the Fenrir utility, and it'll make these attackers easier to kill. Speaking of people easy to kill, Mira getting taken off the board uncharacteristically early on this site, so that's going to be very damaging for Sfam, but fortunately all of their utility will already be down. But here we see the Glaz being used to effect. Glaz taken out very, very early previously, but those are going to get dealt with from CC. No hard breach for you just yet.
Do you understand that there's head holes waiting for them? I don't know. He keeps shooting it, and Hibana keeps trying over and over again. And this time might be the charm here. A Scopes gets a kill on his Areno, trying to swing out, and that is going to be no bueno. Frost still terrorizing these ex-Kairos pellets, but it doesn't matter if the man behind the Mira is just no longer going to be with us here. Yes, Vaughn has the hero characteristics, but not for this round. He's taken out swiftly. No kills, 1 consolidation onto Loki, but that might not be enough as a trade will take him out. That'll be Rash to close out the round, and that's CrownZero yet again for a more coordinated round. We've seen them bring in the utility needed, and that was a beautiful execute as they now claim the lead.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Sfam were on something when they were denying the X-Kairos from detonating. They were really onto something there. But then the CC hold, that was lost very, very quickly. And I think the criminal thing is, before CC was actually taken off the board, the Glaz was able to put their smoke down and then just crouch walk through. And it's like we're back in Yukin 2 again. Like, it's, the crouch walking meta, it's alive, it's here, we're back.
I mean,
yeah,
I thought that was beautiful. I thought it was beautiful, honestly. There was nothing better than that, but you have players running out, such as the Mira, and gets quickly obtained by this IQ waiting very patiently. I think the crouch strat would have been very effective if she had used it downstairs, but honestly, they're going to try this again, and I'm quite intrigued to see how they're going to play it out.
Yeah, nothing wrong with the classics. Same site, same setup, apart from the Fenrir now being dropped in favor of a Doc. So, always a very popular defender, but notably the Warden pick over the Frost, so moving entirely away from that kind of trap meta, although we do have Rashri sat there still on the Frost, unable to recreate the heroics. I'm wondering how much of a blip in form that was for Yes, because for the last 3 rounds, they've been kept relatively quiet. 7-0, moving now to 7-2. So I'm wondering if they've just had a brief resurgence of form, and then that's your lot. Same site. Same strats. Here we go. We're going to see the X-Kairos going out. That's a potentially misplaced smoke pellet, interestingly enough. As we see now the CC, they're going to start popping those X-Kairos, much like last round. Isn't it weird how time repeats itself?
I don't know. 3rd time's the charm, I guess. They bring the Warden to adapt to the smokes, but an interesting play. Maybe that interesting run of form here by Yes Vaughn. You could maybe call him Liverpool the way he has an interesting charge at the beginning. Goes mid for a little bit, and maybe he'll pick it up near the end, but only time will tell. From here on out, we're seeing Sfam adapt here. They're bringing operators that completely deny the Glaz, but guess what? There's no Glaz on this roster, so Warden, one of those safe operators that you can have, but right now he's not going to have a very effective purpose, as these smokes are only being used to distract the attackers from the defenders from the fact that their X-Kairos trying to get set in here. But it looks like CrownZero going to be switching it up a little bit and going for an East take.
Yeah, it's a very good misdirection really coming out from CrownZero. Throw the smokes, make them think that you have got a glass, but instead you're going to refocus your attack elsewhere. But we're seeing there's a different strat slightly on defense as well from Sfam and CrownZero. They're struggling to get around that central shield. Zay, they're going to pick up their first of the game as a kill on Loki, but Fleeks and Scopes, they're going to slap right back with refrags onto Rashi and Yespon.
No Mira left on Fountain, meaning we're going to have Ellie here take the job for himself, saying solo Doc, having a stim for himself, but to no avail, as now the Y is going to be forced into an even worse corner. Remy still fighting here, but you have the attacker circling like sharks, flashes raining in, no Wamai discs to help you this time, and that's a certain round claim as the perfect use of utility, the perfect way of using the map to your advantage. Goes and lines up perfectly for CrownZero, as that is a very well-deserved round, as they are the ones starting to take charge and win this game, now leading by 2.
Yeah, both teams, they adapted their strategy slightly and they moved things around a little bit. They still had the mirror set up and they're still committing to that from Sfam's side, but they also committed very heavily to that extended hold out into the hallway, out next to where you would usually find a CC rotate on 90. And it was there where it was really, battle was really joined, I suppose, in a way, because CrownZero, initially they couldn't find a way around it, but as soon as that shield went down, it opened the floodgates and CrownZero could start pouring through this gap, this crack in the Sfam defense which had been opened up, and take a 4-2 lead. And this is where you get kind of into the mentality of Siege, where now they've won 3 rounds on the trot. Now Sfam need to worry a little bit about CrownZero developing that kind of momentum, as I was saying before, where it feeds into itself. It becomes a bit of a loop. And if it keeps going, then Sfam, they're going to really struggle. So this is an absolutely crucial round. Their attack, they need to go out and they need to win.
I feel like I couldn't have worked better myself. I feel like you're setting me up for a cinematic experience here. And honestly, that's what this has been. We've seen both teams really trying to use their utility, but only CrownZero being able to use their utility and be coordinated. It's not just a one piece for you to use your utility. You hope to God it'll work. You have to be very, very coordinated to be able to do so, and that's the only thing we're seeing from CrownZero. SM has the idea. They keep switching it up, but nothing has been working for the last 2 rounds. They're being ran for their money here. They're now completely disregarding the Mira and going to go for the normal head holes onto the breach, which I'm very surprised they're going to be doing. I don't know why they're not double reinforcing this. Instead of throwing a curveball, we'll have CrownZero go for a security push because they need to rid this Zami off of top east to relieve some of the pressure as they're going to try to build up their attack.
Yeah, first Zami pick that we've seen so far. First Takebi pick as well. So a bit more of an intel heavy attack being backed up by a bit more of a turtley, a bit more of a, okay, we're going to hold the angles that we like to hold kind of defense. Interesting that neither of these teams have really looked over towards the east side short over into Armory, but there we go. Zay going to get taken off the board first. That's Takebi, and that's before they get even their second call off. So lack of a use of utility there. As you see the long angles being held by Sfam, but not quite nabbing that CrownZero defender over in East Stairs. And here we go on CC breach. The security breach does, yes, we'll take out Nikki. That'll get refragged out by Scopes, who'll pick up a second over onto Remy. 4v2. Sfam once again in the deficit when it comes to players. They'll be unable to pick off any more of these CrownZero defenders in that little exchange.
Honestly, props where props are due. You have CrownZero go to their first defensive round and already bring a roster that looks much more conformed than SM. They brought the Azami for the first time, which is honestly probably the best defender right now. They finally prioritized her, and that's how he got 2 kills to push his team forward by 2 bodies. And now they can just sit back and relax. They have 50 seconds left on the clock. They're good for time, and they have sight, they have fountain, and they have all of the time in the world here. The only utility that could be troubling is the Rotero charges that could push a man off of the head holes onto half wall. But right now, it's all about your time. It's all about who plays more patient here. And we know CrownZero, a very uniform team. They're playing as a team. But the forced run here from the Frost, that'll be a quick body. Oh my days, they just walk right into it. And that'll be a down here as Fleeks will go down. Yeswan claims the kill. onto Loki, and that was a beautiful play on how to get in. He really made the play. Who is this guy? Just walks in regardless. 1v2. It doesn't matter. We said it can't be a one-man army to take it all on by himself. A little bit of ring around the rosy. There's no way he aces twice in a row. He's hiding in Fountain. He's rotated over to East, and you were 1 second away for claiming another ace. But there's no way we're leaving it in one man's hand. And you were right. This is a one-man show for Sfam.
I'm gonna call that an ace. I don't care. I don't care. If you kill enough people to make them scared to even peek you as the clock's running down, listen, you don't have to land the final shot. You've won the round. You've put the team on your back. You've picked up the 4K you're out of nowhere, out of absolutely nowhere. And then the timer, the six defenders come in. I'm sorry, that's an ace in my book. I don't care what anyone says at me. Absolutely fantastic play each one. And where my only question is this: where was this round 4? Where was this round 5? And where was this round 6? Are they time limited on popping off? Who knows? But I mean, yeah, it's fantastic. Just being able to turn it on like that, shut down a push, rotate through, pick off another couple, and make the last person alive scared to even repeat you. Take a bow, son, for the second time.
Beautiful. Take a bow is correct indeed. The man has recognized the gaps in the defense. He's managed to prioritize that every single time, and it has worked for him. And honestly, round of applause, but I think you're right for being crucial on him. He didn't have this aggression these last couple of rounds, and it only started getting real for him when he just shoot his own camera. A little bit interesting as we have Castle sniping his own default camera. That makes some sense, but we're 1 round shy away from match point, and we have 2 players on Sfam going a combined record of 1-14. You have something you can credit or try to discredit Yesvon for being a one-man army, but where is his team to be able to relieve that pressure off of him? And this is going to be a hefty play to be able to dissect. Hopefully, not one man is going to be tasked with doing that.
Yeah, and despite the heroics, unfortunately not winning the round. So there does come a point where if you're Esport, you need to be shouting down your microphone and saying, "Listen, I'm breaking my back here. What's going on? Where are you?" And there comes a certain point where you've got to say, I need you to contribute. It's time to pay the rent. It's time to come out and pay the rent, guys. As we see them attack now, Rashi obviously going down very, very early for Sfam. That's not going to be very useful. Losing the Ash, not a huge amount of utility, but obviously still useful and pretty handy with the R4C. Elise trying to lead the charge, but I would argue if you're taking a blitz, you're taking a very direct motion towards the site, and that's not something that they're doing right here. They're playing very passively.
Right now, finally, the verticality hasn't been sniped off first. You have Sfam down one singular body. Nobody in the corners. Blitz just has to make sure you have to clear those corners. Finally, some shield usage we've seen, and they damn well need it. Yesvon getting taken care of. No heroics this round. Getting a quick refrag onto scopes. They're still going to be at a deficit here as the defenders are being set up perfectly. There's still another floor to clear before you can get down to a breach. Damage being dealt very heavily here. Ellie taking damage, not being confirmed dealt, but guess who is? Arino getting taken care of. That shotgun packs a punch. It'll be a 1v3 as Dipsy confirms 3 kills for himself. And that will be a 1v3, which I see is very hard to throw. That should send us and set us up perfectly for the match point.
You would think so. You would think so.
No
I mean,
this round.
we've seen them do it before. We haven't seen Remy do it before, but we've seen this happen before. So let's not write him off just yet. 30 seconds on the clock though, and not finding any of these defenders who they've just retreated back to site. They know they don't need to contest this. They've got the timer, and the attacker hasn't even got the case. You can't even rely on that good old Pengu quote, can you? 20 seconds left. Hand on the bomb. What do? You just drop down that hatch and let Nikki pick you off from afar. There's absolutely no contest there. 6-2, CrownZero. And here we go, map point.
Honestly, there's nothing to say here. Sfam started off with a punch, but that's honestly all there was because it looks like the punch is on them. They've been completely ran around these last couple of rounds, and I'm pretty sure it's been almost 4 or 5 rounds in a row, they've been getting completely brutalized here when it comes to playing utility, when it comes to using their time. It's just been not seen. We have Rashi having to be put in a 1v3 situation. We have Vaughn being put in multiple situations where he has to frag out. It's just not something of a uniform team to be seeing. But this is CrownZero's map, so it's expected that it's going to go a little south, but are they going to be able to get their heads in the game? Sfam, you have Nighthaven Labs next up on the board. Can you manage to either prolong the ending of this map or push into the next with your heads held up high and your spirits to bring it back and take it to map 3?
Yeah, you can't write them off just yet, but it does look like the momentum's entirely on CrownZero's time. Entirely on CrownZero's side at the moment. 5 rounds in a row now for CrownZero. That's a very impressive amount of momentum in anyone's book. And here we go. They've got. I really like this usage of Castle because it doesn't necessarily completely cut off roamers. They can still, retreat back to site or around the map if they need. But what it does do is it cuts off some very key sight lines for these attackers, and it stops them from moving freely. It takes up a lot of utility. You're going to have to use these Flores drones before you get anywhere near the site, so you can't use them for any utility that's on site. So I really like this castle usage.
Nothing to say here except for let's see how it'll play out. We haven't seen any Mira being brought, and I've seen some interesting plays where players do go to the bathroom site and use the Mira upstairs on Fountain to try to deny their verticality here, but seeing how you have Vaughn on that Ram boogie drone, he just flies through a door and gets the first kill onto Loki here. Beautiful first blood here as he takes care of the Goyo, but his utilities all been placed down, and now the next task. Get rid of the castles, get rid of the verticality, and start playing vert before you get below that 1 minute marker, as we've seen them be very, very stingy when it comes to being on time and showing up when they have, more than 30 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, they're missing a couple of very key timelines really for themselves in terms of attacking. You need to your first minute of a game of Siege, of a round of Siege, all about attacking prep. Maybe pick up a frag if you can, hunt down a roamer, but it's all about prepping your attack. And here, there's just not really that much in the way of preparing to attack. That C4 is not going to come to anything. It's nicely placed, but it just doesn't quite connect. As I believe they're still just outside the building, and now we see CrownZero. They've abandoned that vertical control. So despite not really facing too much pressure from these Sfam attackers, they've allowed them to take control of Vert with a minute left on the board. Nikki, they'll finally get a C4 kill. They'll get that over onto Remy, evening us up. And Zay, they'll pick up their third of the game over onto Scopes. Scopes having a really good game so far. That's a good big fragger to take off the board. There's another one as Fleeks, the castle, trying to sneak up onto the top floor. They'll get picked off as well as Zay hits a double. It is still map point, but for the first time in quite some rounds, we've got
What is he doing?
Sfam with the man advantage. 1v4 then as Nikki. 10 and 4 so far. It's down to them to try and clutch it all up, but they won't be able to as the head hole over onto 90. They'll fall. And Sfam will live to fight another day.
Kind of concerned. Was Dipsy lost? He continued to walk across the very wide open windows that he got shot off of previously. Why did he keep just waltzing in and around? I have no idea, but right now, that was a good round from SFAM, looking a lot more uniform as a team. If they can continue to bring this, they could have a comeback on their hands. But as of right now, it is still a very large margin between the match point and the comeback. So let's just see what SM have in store for us in these next couple of rounds or this potential last round. And I just need to say, what the hell is that loadout coming in here from the Fenrir?
Listen, we don't judge. We don't judge. I think that we've seen a lot of questionable operator lineups and a questionable loadouts coming out in this season. So I think I've learned maybe not to judge. They can't take too much, disheartening momentum out of that last round. They were outplayed, yes, but now they've got to go back to primary site CrownZero. And they can set this up, configure it to their liking, and this is going to be one, where they won very, very tenuously on their first offensive round, but they did win it, and they know they can. The key here is they really need to get Yes off the board very, very quickly. That's your intel operator of Takebi. That's where all of these calls are going to be coming out from, as we see here, those drones being used to take out these Azami barriers very early on.
Just need to get the drones in. We were talking about that attacking craft last round. Just find your essential kills. And how do you lose
Lovely.
that gunfight? You are on the rappel, but scopes for two. Quick shots. He is James Bond himself. One taps a man off the rappel. Quick 180 to take care of the next. There's 15 kills next to his name for a reason. He is shut out, but his team still have the chip on their shoulder of having the two bodies up, and now East Control is up for grabs, but at the cost of two attackers. Security and break room have to be next up here, because now everything is going to have to be accelerated for these attackers to be able to have a push that isn't going to happen in either the last 10 seconds or where all of the other defenders are going to be split up focused on them.
Yeah, they take the Kirby off the board, they take Yes off the board before we even call one. So there's no utility coming out of either the Striker or the Takebi. We are going to see Elise go down. They'll get rezzed, but they'll have very precious little health to go around. And now it's down to Rashi, now it's down to Zay and Elise to try and pull it back from the fire. The three arguably lowest fraggers so far on this Sfam side. They're now going up against a CrownZero team that know where they are. They've set the site up to configure it to what they want, and now this is your crunch moment. This is where you find out what kind of team you are, because your back's against the wall. But here we go. Elise, they fall very early to Loki as they hold these sight lines. 4v2, a minute left on the board, and it looks like Sfam are very, very short on ideas.
You said take that initiative, and they took that idea and threw it out the window as Loki decides to take his own initiative and find a kill of his own, taking care of that last person that was on 20 HP, taken out by that frost mat. Double C4 will confirm Rashi's death, and it's a 1v4 on match point. Delta, he is circling around to his very, very short form of death here. Lots to be done. He's aiming in kneecap level. Has the long angle formed up, but how long are you really going to hold this angle with 20 seconds on the clock? Opening up a castle that was supposed to be opened up 2 minutes ago, and now you have to deal with the bodies on security. You can claim one, you get a little too greedy, and that is why you will be refragged almost instantly by the Frost, giving CrownZero their 7-3 victory on border, and they will head on over to Nighthaven.
Yeah, that's a fantastic performance from CrownZero, really, isn't it? You can't say anything else. Very, very dominant, apart from a couple of blips of absolute brilliance coming out from Yesfon. But you can't rely on one player to try and pull you out of the fire. You can't. It is a team effort. Now, SFAM now, their conversation in between this round and the next is going to be absolutely vital, because as you see here in the replays, they're being comprehensively outplayed all over the park. It's only these one or two little moments where they're like, yes, okay, actually we got something together, we're putting something together, unable to really recreate that over the course of the rest of the rounds. So in this conversation now, which they're going to be having as we take ourselves to a break as well, they're going to be having a little chat and saying, just reset. It's still 0-0. We're still in this. There's no reason to panic. That was CrownZero's pick. Now we're going to ours.
They head on to their own map, and hopefully a much better map will lie for us in store. Nighthaven, obviously a player favorite for a reason. And SFAM, they have the opportunity to show us why. But ladies and gentlemen, do some push-ups, grab some water, refresh yourselves, because this next round or this next map, we're on series point, and it should be an entertaining one to see how SFAM are either going to try to send it to map 3, or if CrownZero just has too much momentum and can't be broken down. Come join us in a couple of minutes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are back after that amazing break. I hope you guys are feeling refreshed. I know I am. SFAM, lots to prove on this one map. It's theirs, which is a benefit, but right now they have to be able to bring it back because that border game was an interesting display of some Rainbow Six Siege. And if it could be a little bit more coordinated, we saw the ideas from Sfam. If that coordination is there, hopefully we will see a more enticing matchup.
Yeah, it was a bit disjointed really from Sfam really. Particularly on the defensive rounds, it felt like they didn't really have counters to this CrownZero offense, so were able to move much more adaptably. Now, it is very fair and prudent to mention that that was CrownZero's map pick, and now here we are on Sfam's map pick. CrownZero's record on labs, it's not the best. They have picked it themselves 3 times, but they've only got a 33% win rate on it, losing the other 2 times. So you could argue that if they picked it, maybe they've scrimmed it quite a lot and they've just lost against teams that on the day were better. But SFAM, I think, are doubling down and saying, actually, we know we're pretty good on this map. We're going to take them there. Conspicuously, though, this is the first time that SFAM in the competition have chosen to go to labs. So there's a couple of interesting factors in their sign-up where it's saying, okay, CrownZero have scrimmed this a lot, but then maybe it's just SFAM's to take.
Intriguing though. Again, man, honestly just intriguing on how many times we are going to see the shield ops getting priority over the operators that can roam clear, especially on Night Haven. Night Haven, you have so many rooms you can hide away in. You can have a man on the other side in meeting while one man sits in Animus completely across the map, and they would have no idea that they are aware of each other. And I mean that in the most nicest form for SFAM. We haven't seen the greatest of roam clearing or really any form of structured play coming in from SFAM. So they have a lot to do here. And banning Monty over an operator such as Dokebi or Jackal would have been a lot better for when they have to go on to defense and have to deal with a very coordinated CrownZero.
Yeah, we've not really seen either of these teams, have a player, slink off into a very deep roam, have we? We've seen both of these teams play extended roams where maybe rather extended site holds where there's the site, they're holding that, they've got the utility down, then they'll extend a little bit further, so they've got that collapsibility. And if you're confused by what I mean by that, maybe think about your clubhouses where if you're on gym bedroom, you go over, you reinforce the breach into CC, you start holding and collapsing in from there. That's the kind of holds that we've had so far. We've not really seen any of these players in your high frag ones, like your ES ones, like your scopes, commit to a very far, deep roam where they play a lot of the rounds, trying to harass the enemy team, and then come back into sight to try and clutch it out if they need to.
Couldn't have said it better. Lots to do, especially on this map, and there is honestly no buffer. There is no form of error that is allowed to be made on this specific map. Right now, SFAM are going to be given attack first, which is already putting them at a slight disadvantage considering this is a very defender-based map. But right now, all we need to see from them is the coordination that'll send us maybe the defender attacker switch where they either have the rounds up or maybe they're pushing for a tie. Right now, we just don't want to see them get completely ran for their money on rounds and be at such a big deficit that they can't even make a comeback, even if they are on defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they need to get ahead of steam early, really. I think, particularly with this being their own map pick and starting on attack, they're going out and trying to almost chase the game early. This is where they set the tempo of the game. CrownZero, they've shown that they're very good at controlling the tempo, so now it's all on SFAM. All the pressure is there to get a good start in this round 2, because these first 2 rounds, I would argue the winner of these first 2 rounds, if they're the same, they'll be the winner of the whole thing.
Right now, Breach and Connector getting open. Nomad going for a little bit of a ballsy push here, getting hit by the F-Naught. She needs to seek refuge right back into Connector, and that's a safe thing to do. You don't want to get taken out quite early into this action phase. A minute 30 burnt off the clock and a minute 30 left in play here. Smoke has to be mindful of how many gas canisters he leaves. Rashi getting first blood here onto CrownZero. You'll have your Warden go down, which is imperative for this post plant because everybody now is going to be vulnerable to these flashes. They need to get rid of the F-Nauts that are in electrical though, because it's going to be hard to have that pressure. This Dipsy getting pinched here from electrical and Connector. Quick way to adapt. You got to kill with his smoke grenade and got one for himself. Pushes himself off with the Nomad, and it will temporarily deny the plant. Right now, the second try Is Lightning going to strike twice? Right now, Scopes needs to get very aggressive here. No more air jab to help out. Actually completely unaware that there's somebody swinging him, but the flash doesn't go off in time. And Nomad will be forced to have to think outside the box, and a quick flick and swing around the corner will give the first round to Sfam, and that is what we're talking about.
Yeah, the first round that we've seen the game's result in post plant. Very, very well done. That's a marker not only that you can tap on heads, but the marker of a good strategy. And it's a very different SFAM side to what we saw over on Border. The double breaches, offering different points to access the site, pinching in, as you said, when they started to really break the back of this CrownZero offense. They yielded a lot of time early on, but when it came time to execute, the ghost switch was flicked, and they all hard committed. That's a fantastic attack. Scopes in a 1v2, I mean, you'd back them, but it just goes to show how Rainbow Six Siege can sometimes be a game of inches or pixels. Because if that flashbang that got thrown out by the Nook earlier, if that goes, an inch or two to the right and blinds the Nook, that's a very even 1v1 where Scopes has the the swinger's advantage. So, it just goes to show how tight it can be sometimes. But broadly, if you're SFAM, you won't care about any of that. You'll care that it's 1-0.
Honestly, perfect execute by them. There was a lot of talking points that they could have walked away there, and they could keep tweaking it to their liking, but the fact that they won the round is the most important. CrownZero, it's a little intriguing to me how they're not bringing Mira. She's on the board, and she's an operator that is very beneficial for the defenders. No matter what site they go, she can be useful, except for maybe the storage site. So lots to be done here, and maybe a quick setup that needs to be changed of rosters and operators. But right now, they have only one round standing between them and tying it up or pushing the advantage to just 2. Right now, they're trying to get the breach open, but Zofia getting denied from below is going to have her life almost taken away, and that will be a confirmed kill for Scopes, and the breach is now going to be much harder to get now.
Yeah, it's a neat, naughty little angle that, for those who aren't aware of it, that'll pick up players in casual, in ranked, in competitive. That's an angle where if you're yes one, you've got to expect the counter, particularly when you signpost it by opening the floor up first. Very, very well countered from CrownZero, and that will effectively deny this breach off because there's now no real way, apart from, direct action through doors, through windows, for them to pop that mute armor, pop those bandits. That direct action is going to come from Rashi as they'll take Loki off the board. 4v4 as we hit the halfway point of the round.
Taking the charge here, getting a nice refrag also to 4-4 on the board here. The breach will get opened a minute 30 into the round, and now the next objective is going to be either denying this breach or trying to keep it close for as long as possible. But Nikit has different objectives here, so he'll find a kill for himself, putting the attackers at another deficit yet again after a couple of seconds of that recent refrag. The breach in IT is now open, but the fact is they still have electrical close and they have barely a minute left. They have to adapt, and they have to adapt now. Otherwise, it's going to be a game of Ring Around the Rosie with doors in one open breach where the attackers are going to have to funnel in and get picked off one by one, because this is one of those sites where that will happen if you don't get aggressive in the right angles here. Flash getting thrown in, and he's trying to bide his time, but there is still lots to be done and only 30 seconds to do it in.
Yeah, the Fenrir very effective there at 9 point. Very surprised that the swing didn't come out there, but I think CrownZero, they're aware that they don't really have to push this at all. They can just sit back with the timer being so low. Sfam struggling to put their will on the game. Zaya taking shot after shot after shot from the barbed wire. They'll take all that damage. That won't help them at all. The Scopes will pick off another one, and the round starts to generate down towards the end game.
Stream crash there. Scopes goes down and be finished, but not in a position for the Thermite to run across. Nomad forced to improvise here with the shield. A little bit of Ring Around the Rosie, we've mentioned it before, but a quick shot here by Nikit will get himself the kill. Thermite forced to resort to his pistol case, lose 0 seconds. Defenders win on the time, just running out here. And we said if they cannot get those breaches open, it will be a pain, and that's exactly what we've just seen.
How did CrownZero fumble the breach? I mean, they had the mute, they had the bandit. They how did the breach actually get opened in the end? I mean, not that it necessarily matters, they won the round, but when that breach got opened, I was sat there thinking, how? Because there was no drones, there was like no twitch. I didn't really see any impact EMPs or anything of that nature. I don't know how they fumbled it, but what that did do is CrownZero, they saw an opportunity and they poured into it, and they weren't able to go any further because they had these tactical Fenriers in place to say, do you know what, you come in, we'll hold the door open for you, but you're not going to like what happens when you get in. So, very well played from CrownZero. We'll go down to the bottom side, 1 round apiece.
I think they got that breach open with that verticality from the Ashe. I think he just stuck her face up and got a kill onto the mute and managed to get the electrifiers again.
Just a quick swing, yeah.
Yeah,
Fair.
worked out for
Well
them.
played.
But exactly, and now they have the bottom side to deal with. But yet again, I'm not seeing Kamira for some reason, and she's just one of those operators that is essential. This map, I'm very concerned for CrownZero, considering this is the team that does bring the utility where the utility is needed. They bring the Azami when needed, they bring the Miras when needed, but we're just not seeing it on this map. But, I mean, not much to criticize considering it is 1-1 and a round left in play to see whether it'll be evened out or they can manage to keep growing their differential. CrownZero now at an interesting point of the game where they can either continue to pummel and punish Sfam, or we're just going to see it keep going back and forth.
Yeah, notably they are entering from this top floor, so that shows that Sfam, they are a little bit concerned actually about a roam threat from CrownZero, despite evidence suggesting that they're not really committing to that. You can see they've got 1 or 2 people on this second floor, but they're not really committing anything to that top floor. CrownZero, they're going to let these breaches get opened up on this second site. That's just going to use up a whole load of utility, as we see now the RAM being used to open up that verticality with a minute on the board. There's a lot of utility off-site from CrownZero, but they're just not holding it. We see the pre-play C4 from Pulse as they're wandering to and fro, blissfully unaware, but there's absolutely nothing happening there beyond it. The C4 goes off and it doesn't catch anyone.
Blitz almost meeting his maker with that C4. The second one raining in, though. Does it confirm the kill? The answer is no, but it'll take care of 75% of his HP. Pulse still giving active comms, even if he doesn't have a C4. And there's still a man to worry about. Goyo was upstairs, and he will be taken out shortly after. Dipsy to get a quick refrag. Loki for one of his own. Yesvon getting quickly traded out after getting a kill. And now it'll be at a position where SM have to be forced to find an area to funnel in. Volcans are still active, and they are at a 1-man deficit. Still have time on their hands, still have time to drone, but the question is, can they do it in a timely manner? There's no C4s left, but guess what there is? You have those yokais on the board.
Yeah, they can come in clutch, especially as the timer ticks further to that 0-0 marker. If you are planting and the yokai drone hits you with its sonic blast, it cancels your plant, and that immediately means you're in contravention of the timer. The enemy win the round. So that's going to be very powerful as we tick down. 30 seconds left on the clock, and we're still seeing Sfam still kind of setting up this top floor in a way. But here we've got the Jackal. They're playing. They've made it down through a hatch, sneaking down onto site. They're going to have a little look, but they're nervous. There's so many angles to try and peek, and they're going to get peeked by Fleeks. Just the one left as Fleeks. Now they see, they know the calls are being made out by the Pulse that Zaya has made their way down. They'll not quite get traded out. They'll get the down, but it won't trade out, and Zaya will be downed as well. 1 more round then for CrownZero console.
Quick adaptation there. Look at that go. They had 1 man sitting in the corner of Cargo. Ace just cannot adapt. There's too many feed holes. There's too many head holes. You just can't get into that site. Especially the floor was lava for half of that round. C4 is getting tossed out from below. And one of the kills did actually connect. And that was all they needed for CrownZero to start to push towards the advantage. They're looking at a 2-1 now, and they can continue to push this as they are doing a great job at being able to adapt on how Sfam is playing and push right in to their setups and honestly force them to have no time to do anything. But maybe that's something that SM needs to fix up, because we've seen them, as you were mentioning before, they're setting up with 30 seconds left on the clock, and all of the defenders are parked up stationary, just waiting for the clock to run out.
Yeah, I mean, the push, it just came very much too late, which isn't something you would expect when you're playing with a Blitz on the board. Round 3, Blitz on the board, that suggests to me that you're wanting to take some direct action. At a certain point, just charge. Go after the game. Go get them. This is your opportunity to stamp your authority on your map pick on attack. You've got to chase. The defenders aren't going to give it to you. By not pushing the advantage, by standing back a little bit, the blitz, I think a lot of their utility is lost. All the utility in the blitz, for me at least, is in the shock value of that kind of oh god feeling when they're charging you down and you're like, what do? I need help. But we're seeing the blitz, they're playing alone, they're not really being used to their full effectiveness. Round 4, and we're almost a minute down into the round, still not really seeing Sfam push their advantage at all. They're starting to regress down these stairs as Rashi takes a bullet or two. Not quite going down, but they are going to retreat from there. That's a first skirmish dealt with. Winner, CrownZero.
They took care of the Ram. Key areas of verticality are now going to be completely denied. This is going to be crucial for this castle, playing in and around the lounge area. Now going to have to deal with all of the players circling on his position when this vert is either lost or played out and given up. But I don't think CrownZero has any intention of stopping soon. Maverick really trying to put the work in, but Dipsy still terrorizing the team. Sfam taking care of Yesvon and Ellie, and I don't know if that breach got opened up in time because you still have two attackers trying to prioritize electrical and connector while the other ones are getting picked off one by one on the other side of the map.
Yeah, and this is where they need to really speed up Sfam because, they're still on their attacking prep. They're still getting picked off in 1s and 2s. There's no refrag ability here. And still, can you really egress through that hole? Yeah, you can. But it's best just to try and rotate off site because, you're not getting that open. I don't think that Zay knows. They have to know now. They're not going to kill
crawling. Because... Where's he going? All right, well, we have Nikit really trying to seek refuge in sight, and nobody is actually going to finish him. You have to wonder what Zarino's really thinking here. 2v4, and Fleeks gets one, and he will get deprived of the second as Dipsy will find it playing this almost unshallowable head peek, and that will be CrownZero for another round, and it looks like it wasn't just the map pick. It was the game, and they will move on to 3-1.
Yeah, very good round from CrownZero, holding these attackers back off-site. Not even nearly on site, holding them back off-site, and now they're going to go back to here. Com servers. Sfam won this on their first round, but this is the primary site. This is the strongest, in theory, strongest site on the map. And you'd have to back CrownZero here to take a 4-1 advantage. The ideal defensive half. I can't help but wonder if Sfam chose this map thinking, given the records that both teams share, maybe this is Sfam's map. But having picked it so much, having scrimmed it so much, it's not showing. Because whilst the strats, theoretically they're sound, you also need to be able to tap on heads. And CrownZero, at the moment, they're fragging out hard enough to dispel any ability that Sfam have of pushing in and putting their will on the game.
I mean, I don't think anything else is expected. Having CrownZero capitalize on their own lead on defense, but we did expect some resistance coming in here from Sfam, considering they were really punishing everything that was happening here on the first round. They got the walls open, and they, as a team, pushed in to the site and tried to get the bomb down. They did get the bomb down, and it was forced into a 1v2 situation, so we expected something different from them, but that is just not something we are seeing. And CrownZero really capitalizing. If they can continue to grow the lead, as I mentioned before, this game isn't going to matter who's on defense, who's on attack, if the score is 4 or 5-1.
There you go. There's a run out being prepped. Sorry, not a run out being prepped. There's an escape actually being prepped and executed by Sfam as they look to escape and rotate around. Clearly not liking what they've seen in front of them. A minute already down. We've not really seen any gun battles between these two teams. I think this will be the first round in 4 that we've not had a kill by the time we get to the minute mark. That won't last too much longer though, as we see Sfam starting to poke and prod very, very close to the site here in electrical. The jump in comes, but that's being held by Nikki. They'll back off. They don't like that. They don't need to press their advantage though. They've got a lovely little shotgun there that has Sfam's names etched into it.
Time the flashes won't matter because guess who's on the board? It's the Warden. Ellie getting a kill of his own, and that'll be first blood onto the Mozzie. That's deprived of the C4 as well. It's a beautiful use of getting rid of the utility. IT Breach has been open, so now they're looking a little bit more better on the terms of looking for time. Right now, it's all about getting the breaches open, as you were talking about, getting the prep work done. But we are starting to approach that 1 minute mark, meaning the action is about to start raining in as these drones are starting to confirm what's happening here. Scopes meets his maker, picking up by Zay, shotgun narrowly missing the head of the Nomad, and she will live to see another day. And that will be still 2 bodies up here for Sfam. Surely you can't toss it. Warden being put in a situation where he can get a good amount of kills here. But I think this ace knows, and he will capitalize. Zay for 2, but he will get traded out as Dipsy narrowly wins that 1v1. And that will be the round confirmed as Ash confirms from below, actually. What a passionate kill to deny any form of close playing here on Electrical, and Sfam find a round of their own to just close out the differential to 1.
Quite notably there, you saw Sfam take a man advantage, not early, but very much before CrownZero, and they compounded on that with another kill and another. They're pushing together when they attack this top site, so there seems to be a disconnect in how they attack this top site and how they attack when it's when it's basement, when it's kitchen area. That's where the key is for me in Sfam pushing and making the most of this their own map pick, because where they were being held and where they struggled to establish a man advantage, it feels like if they lose 1 or 2 early on, the round is gone for them unless they've got a hero, But CrownZero, it felt like they lost the man advantage, and from there they couldn't bounce back. But it never felt like they couldn't. It felt like there was a chance right up until the death. That's not something I'm really feeling with Sfam. They're not going to care about that analysis. They're going to care about that second round, and their focus now, as we go down to this basement site sign-out, is going to be making it a 3-3-1/2. Arguably not ideal if this is your own map pick, but Sfam, they'll be happy to take it 3-3, and they'll back themselves on their defense.
The main idea here, you're speaking on the heroics. Yes-One's 2-5. Have we noticed this? He only plays well on away, is what I'm realizing here, because we haven't seen much of him. He's been shut out almost first or second pick every single round he's tried to make a play. Right now, we're seeing the other players on Sfam step up and play as a team, and that's exactly what we were requesting before. But now just bring those 2 critical aspects together. Have Yesvon act like the superstar he was on Border, and have the rest of Sfam waking up and performing well earlier stages in the round so the differential just doesn't grow here. Right now, we're not seeing anything like we did on Border. It's not 1-4 or 5-1 or the differential just growing to a high margin. We're seeing it kept quite close. That's exactly what we were expecting here from Nighthaven. I think they'll be quite delighted to hop on to defense with 3 rounds in hand if they can bring it back right here.
Bit of a minor thing, but that's a very erroneous smoke coming out from Dipsy there. Potentially because they heard Loki, but again, we're not potentially because they heard Yes1, but still we're not seeing Blitz being used to charge down these defenders. It's being used more as a kind of pivot around which the team can operate and to hold angles. For me, it's a bit of gunplay, especially when it's Yes1, that you would really rather they had a higher caliber rifle rather than a pistol. But these smokes getting used out very, very early. It's quite clear that Dipsy may be a little bit nervous of what is around them. Those comms going to be coming out from the pulse. Nothing much really happening as we get down to this 2nd minute mark. Neither team having dropped any health whatsoever.
You have to criticize the fact that there are no Vulcan canisters near cargo stairs. Dipsy has been deprived of all 3 toxic babes 2 minutes into the round, and Smoke is a very good denial operator in general, but you can use maybe 1 or 2 max around the map until it starts to deprive your team of that utility later on to the round where it starts to come to that plant phase. Rashi, though, gets taken out quite early. That's your spear entry taken out and taken care of. And now a quick drop here from Zerino. Looks like he's just going to be going for a plant. Yesvon getting deprived of almost all of his HP. And it looks like Animus is the main idea here, as all of the defenders are sitting around Animus. Are there C4s? Is there anything to deny the plant? Zerino forced off of it. He's going to try it for a second time here. He has the yokai drones in his aid. 10 seconds left on the clock, and the plant gets denied this time by a kill. Yes, Vaughn, you baited, but what have you done in result of that? Still, the plant to be denied. Yokai drones not needed the second time around, as the gunfights will suffice. Blitz being the last body, and that's CrownZero growing their differential to 4-2 as they'll switch on to attack.
Quite notably, they're the second 2-4 split we've had so far, and that's not what Sfam will have been looking for. Pretty obviously, they won't have been looking to lose any rounds at all, so it may be a bit of a moot point. But to lose their opening split 4-2 on their away map, but then coming to their home map and having the exact same result, that's got to be a little bit demoralizing. And because this is Knockout Siege, this is your last chance saloon. This is where the mentality, you're going to find out what kind of players they really, really are. How resilient can they be? CrownZero, they've been here before. They've done it once, they've done it twice, and they're doing it here for a third time. This is Sfam's first taste of true Knockout Siege, where if you win, you're off to the upper bracket. You're off to the potential of winning that prize pool. If you lose, you're done. You're out. And that is the crucial thing where I think CrownZero, they're fired up enough to take this map to the cleaners. And Sfam, they're just struggling against the CrownZero side that, yes, isn't as dominant as they were over on Border, but is still able to pull these rounds from the fire.
I don't think we could afford it. We are in cinema. And honestly, that's exactly what we're in here. You have both teams really fighting, but CrownZero is obviously the choice. And I would have voted for them if I could have gotten on the prediction. But I'm an idiot. So right now, you'll have them at that 2-round advantage. And Sfam, they have 2 rounds that they need for a response. On defense, that is very possible. All about how you use your utility, though. And right now, we're not looking at any wall denial. They'll bring the Mira, yes, but at what cost? And a TK coming in here for CrownZero, like a holy grail and almost a second kill as the Sfam is being put in a very, very bad and narrow corner.
Well, that won't help. It's not what you like to see, is it? A little TK, especially onto a player that I think has been really the driving force of a lot of your frags throughout the game so far. So that's very unfortunate for CrownZero. But we know that they can bounce back from this. Sfam, they'll be happy to take the brief reprieve.
Breach is getting opened up slowly but surely, and I don't think there is any resistance to it. As again, no wall deny. We have to speak on that. We've seen CrownZero commit a bigger chunk of the round to keeping the breaches closed. And we're seeing Sfam take a little bit more of an open approach, having the Miras and having the connector wall open, meaning if they lose the Mira, this is open season for a plant, and that's exactly what's going to happen. That impact trick won't help, regardless of what you can do, because of this singular plant. Shotgun Ellie wins the gunfight, almost unchallegeable near that electrical window. And right now, they just need to make sure this connector wall remains as solidified as it can, because if they lose it, this will be the easiest plant for CrownZero if they have everybody watching the right angles. But a quick refrag will be first blood in the favor of CrownZero here.
The cam's on, the intel's there. They know exactly where Fleeks is, but it's not going to matter. Remy will swing him, and they'll cop a bullet. 556 for their trouble. 3v3 then as we go into the final minute of the round. Electrical still very much being held by this Warden with the shotgun combination that we saw CrownZero themselves use when they were defending this site. And it all slows down a little bit as CrownZero, they start holding their angles, hoping that Sfam maybe swing around as we saw Remy did just there. But no, they're not. They're a little bit more disciplined than that, and they know that they don't have to. I wonder if a call's gone out there, because you can see the Warden pushing around. Rashni also falls as Loki takes them off the board. 20 seconds left. They do have diffuser, but they're just going to have to go and start clicking on heads. Warden swings around, unknown to the CrownZero defenders, and the defenders, they'll pick it out as Zay picks up a double kill right at the death.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I can't even lie. I was going to say, you cannot see Sfam keep losing these man advantages, especially when you get that gift of a TK. But they managed to reel it back in. Honestly, nothing from me. Zerino really got that double kill. Very important for his team there. Otherwise, this round would have been over if that Warden would have gotten overloaded here into Connector. But what a flank by Ellie. What a coordinated play from these two to push that differential. And now this is a team that I want to see to continue to push CrownZero to their limits, as now it's still either 2 or 1 round or rounds pushing these differentials as we move further and further into the game, and nothing like that border 7-3 we just experienced.
Yeah, very, very key victory for Sfam that. If they'd have lost that, then that would have meant that, CrownZero, not only on top of winning their own half, they were setting that momentum. This could be a 5-2 game right now, and that looks very, very different to a 4-3 game, doesn't it? So, yeah, that's an incredible result, really, for Sfam. Pulling it from, I would argue, is kind of the clutches of defeat. They snatched the victory away from a CrownZero team that had played a very good defensive, a very good attacking round. Going now to the basement. Secondary site, but still a very, very powerful site. I don't think Sfam are really looking at a vert in the same way that CrownZero were. You saw CrownZero, holding onto that vert with these extended reinforcements, the smokes and things like that. Sfam, it feels like a little bit more content to cede that vertical control, but we're seeing here CrownZero, they're not even bothered. They're just going to go straight for a side entrance. Those bandit charges are now very much available for shooting via those maverick holes, and this basement, it's ripe for a take.
Taking a look at the defensive side, they have the Scopos, they have the Vigil, they have players off of site here, but having this Glass going for a little bit of a Swiss cheese play here, it's all about getting that first kill. That first kill is all that matters here, and it looks like EXO is looking like the Wild West, absolutely empty here, as they need to get this breach open, take control of EXO if they're looking for any form of plant. Because right now, Glass is trying to get lucky, but why are you not saving your smokes for later on into the round? Your team has brought you 8 smokes in total, and you get first pick. That's absolutely rough for CrownZero, and that is a pick that they need to build on or take something away from it, because that was interesting, a pick.
Yeah, you can understand the rationale behind it, behind going all in on the smoke, on the smokes and the Glass play. Say getting taken off the board by Fleeks, but you've got to survive to do it. And we saw them use a Glass to similarly little effect on CrownZero. It was a smoked off Glass push that kind of won them the round on, I think it was round 4 back on border. But beyond that, it wasn't that effective, and I do think that's maybe a misplay, because when the smoke goes off, there's your audio cue. Where's that coming from? Oh, I guess it's the Maverick holes. I'm just going to shoot through them, and shoot through them, Sfam did. 4-3, and it's 4-all as we go into the final 40 seconds of the round here, and it's still very much all to play for.
Animus, a very, very easy breach to walk into when you have the Maverick holes on it. But right now, every player on this attacking roster has a task of their own. Players upstairs need to be mindful of the fact that there was or is a Vigil on the board. The question is, did they drone him? They didn't need to. Quick gunshot by Fleek will get him a refrag. But Ellie will get a kill of his own with the scopes. That's why you don't hop into random areas without droning it. But Nikit is on the vertical and has the easy refrag. And right now, it's all about getting your picks. Every single person is deciding to lock in. Fleeks being the most, as he finds 4 picks in total here, takes care of the Scopos, the Vigil, and walks right down EXO to claim his other 2 kills, deprived of an ace. But wow, what a way to reel it back in for CrownZero. And both of these teams are really looking up to the task, but obviously it's CrownZero now to have the lead.
Yeah, it was a good round to bounce back on, and a round where, after that initial strategy kind of fell apart when the Glass was taken down, you'd have to argue that was Sfam's round, right? They took out CrownZero's initial push, they maintained those breaches, CrownZero had to try and relocate, but they did it very, very successfully, and, for some reason, Sfam, there was still a focus on that breach, which just was completely unfounded, because for 2 minutes, there had been no action on that breach beyond the Glass getting picked off. So when CrownZero rotated, Sfam, they weren't positioned to hold the angles that they needed to hold, and instead were caught drifting into these crossfires. And then you can take nothing away from Fleeks. As they moved around, down to that backside area, looking through all these sight holes, which, I think Sfam had very kindly prepared for them, there's nothing you can really do against that if you're not prepared.
I think as we were speaking on the players that need to take initiative, it's been all over the board here for CrownZero. We've seen scopes, we've seen Nikit some rounds in here, in and out, but Fleeks, wow. Fragger on Thermite. He did it a lot. He did it that last round, and he did it also when the site was upstairs. He claimed 2 picks that were very essential to even out the playing field, but it wasn't quite enough to call the round CrownZeros. But Fleek's an absolute essential player. He's on support. He's on hard reaches. He's just doing what is needed forward his team into the round and forward them into the series. And he's doing a great job, as well displayed by that 9-4 as we are seeing currently.
First minute of the round down. Not really that much happening. We're seeing a Decay call come out, which I think is CrownZero looking to eliminate Roamers, and eliminate Roamers, they will. The Scopes will take out Zerino on the Scopos. That's like, that's a big, big kill in terms of operators. And Zay, they've been turning up a little bit as of late. Scopes, they'll take up a little bit of damage for their trouble, but Sfam and Elise also taking damage. Round 9, 4v5, and CrownZero, they've taken the first kill, and they're ready to start looking to set up and execute Sino.
Now that one Jackal track from below, one impact would be enough to confirm the deaths of Scopes. But right now, look at the health varying here from the defenders. Your crucial operators here are being deprived of their health, but Ellie doesn't really care. Will wide swing and take care of Fleeks, and that is your Habana gone before she can detonate those X-Pyros, meaning that Cargo Hatch will remain closed for the rest of this round because there are no other varying sorts of can openers or exothermic up this hatch. It's going to be crucial here for the defenders to be able to isolate their gunfights and be able to win them. Quick read by the bandits to be able to shoot the Scopeless drone because Dokkaebi will have access to those cameras, but short. But Deimos, very crucial operator, use that pistol and make use of it. They need to deal more damage, and damage they will not do, as the C4 will take care of Loki, and there's no refrag. You have all 3 defenders, and one of them being the exception at insanely low HP, and a double drop just keeps feeding Remy. Oh, come on! Use your drones, and he gets 4! That was an absolute horrible display of attack coming in here from CrownZero. They completely blundered it. A second was completely useful for them. It wasn't like they had a second left to drop the hatch. They had an idea and they executed it very poorly.
Like lemmings from a cliff. 1 hatch, 2 hatch, 3 hatch for Remy, picking up the 4K, and that's a fantastic round, really, isn't it? You can't say any further than that. That's a very, very powerful statement from Sfam that, we're not going to go quietly into that good night, and we're going to fight you every step of the way. CrownZero here calling a tactical timeout because, maybe after that, maybe after losing a round in that fashion, you're not going to be too happy. You're not going to be too happy with yourselves. Have a little chat, slow the tempo down, and say, right, here's what went wrong. Here's how we'll fix it. Primary site next for the defense, going up to command center and servers once again. This is where Sfam won on frags in round 7 on their first defensive round. After, a TK onto scopes, which won't have helped CrownZero very much. With a full 5v5, what do you think, Sino? Are Sfam going to be able to hold them off, or are we going to go to match, map, and round point in
I
3
think
short minutes?
relatively they've been able to keep this round differential at 1 or 2. But again, they've only had the lead once this whole match, and it was when they won the first round. Now, I'm no genius, but I don't think that's very good on your own map. I'm not very experienced in analyzing players and their trends, but you've lost essentially a good amount of rounds, both on attack and defense, on your own map pick, especially when you're down a map losing on border. It's honestly luck when it comes to getting the picks and the maps. And are you going to get your own map first, or are you going to have to go play away? But right now, it doesn't really matter. We were talking about how SM need to rise to the occasion. They need to adapt. They need to claim as many rounds as possible on both sides. And heading on in to the break switch on a 4-2 switch was just not the best for them. And they're going to keep suffering if they don't start playing as a team, as CrownZero is definitely not taking any chances, now taking a timeout to be able to talk things over and find different strats to be able to push themselves further in the ESA Cup.
Yeah, I think the key metric for if this timeout is successful is if they win the round. You dive into it at every level of siege. When a team calls a timeout, On average, they'll win the next round. I can't recall the exact percentages, but on average, they will win that next round. Taking that round off of CrownZero for Sfam would be absolutely huge because this is CrownZero saying we need to stop, we need to reset, we need to kind of get a grip of the tempo after a round where they lost, maybe not embarrassingly, but emphatically. So this is the primary site on the map, and if CrownZero win here, we go here again most likely. Is it a well-timed timeout, or would you maybe have saved it a round or two? Who knows? But CrownZero, they've taken this timeout. They're going to have that conversation, and they're going to be saying, this next round, this is ours. So it could well be that we're seeing our last two rounds of the map up here on primary site, where Sfam has shown they are more than capable of taking the fight to this CrownZero side.
Very, very important here on this timeout. But I mean, you said emphatically, but I seen four people hot dropping a hatch like we're playing Warzone. I'm going to comment on it. And you having that refresh of a timeout is something that is going to be essential to pushing it. And you're speaking on if it's going to be something that should have been called around later. I think it should have been called around earlier because if they had something or some sort of plan for whatever that display of coordinated attack was, we would have seen a very different scoreline by now, maybe 6-3. But regardless, we are one round short from match point for CrownZero and one for SM to tie it all up. It's a very crucial round, and I think this timeout should serve the purpose of having that mental reset. The question is, can SFAM continue to adapt to how CrownZero play?
Well, I think here, whilst they're defending, it's more about CrownZero trying to adapt to how Sfam play. You would argue with Sfam taking this top site very, very emphatically in that first, in their first round of the defensive half. CrownZero not really having too much of an answer for it. But Sfam, they didn't keep these breaches closed last time, and as that ace goes out very, very early, I do wonder, with the lack of breach denials really on this half, whether that'll get opened, and it will do, as we see CrownZero, they open that breach very, very early, and in their terms of attacking prep, their attacking timeline, they are miles ahead of where they need to be right now.
We're talking about how that first minute is always essential for prepping your attack, getting those stages ready. CrownZero has just been on average trying to get this done because there's honestly no prep that needs to be done except for using your drones and utility. The breaches given to them with this no wall deny approach coming in here from Sfam. Connector completely given to them. If you burn that mirror, if you hit it with an ashtray, if you pop it with a Twitch drone, or if you just simply throw an ace Selma charge at it, it doesn't matter. That breach is disregarded, and if somebody tries to go for that reinforcement next to it on the rotate, well, good luck, because your face is going to be chopped off as you try to do that. Ability being gifted to them, and I'm pretty sure the breach IT was given to them via Flores drone. There is no charge. There's no way. Flores drone opened it because IT was soft. We're looking at a complete blunder by not bringing electrifiers to the walls, and we're going to see them suffer here talking about utility. But SFAM kind of just swing everything, and it's been working for them these last couple of rounds, so let's see if they can continue that streak.
Yeah, it seems like, with the lack of real breach denial, mute, it can be used as breach denial, but it's not as effective as the others. Their only option is to swing and start tapping on heads, but today they're going to be receiving one of those from Fleeks, who'll hit their 10th kill in this map so far. 5v4, both in round count and in frags. Both of them favouring CrownZero, but that won't last for too long, as Remy will pick up the refrag over onto Fleeks. But this breach will start getting opened up, and now Mira has to worry about those catwalks. They'll go for a narrow swing, they'll pick it up, and there's no refrag coming from the door, with them having rotated away. They're rotating back, but it's all done and dusted as Mira. They've picked up their kill, they just need to retreat.
They need to get back and get ready for all of the action that is about to ensue. But why are they not pushing Connector? You're going to get deprived here for your bodies. It's something you had to have expected. And that's the comeback. They're tied up now. 5-5 on the total. Come on, CrownZero. They played right into the hands of Sfam. The rotate to Aqua. They tried to play Waterfall. It just doesn't work that way. quick swing here by Remy is all that was needed to get this chain going. All three defenders, there was one sitting around electrical, but three defenders sitting around waterfall were committed to keeping that side closed. One drone would have revealed that as those jammers were being shot. If that one drone had gone in and they had gone for that electrical push, we would have seen a much different result here. But again, SM going for that very aggressive play, and it works out for them as they are all tied up at 5-5. Regardless of who wins this round, we are going to match point.
Yeah, especially after a timeout, a performance like that, it really doesn't inspire hope, does it, Sano? CrownZero, they call the timeout immediately before that round, and at that point you're saying, right, this is, we've got to pull something out here. They were able to, and more than that, they also failed quite catastrophically in stamping their authority on the game, in actually backing each other up and picking up these refrags, which have served them so well most of the game so far. I think maybe we've been a little unfair in our commentary to Sfam because they've stepped up, and despite the tempo being yanked from their grasp, they've taken it straight back and they've leveled us up 5-all. CrownZero looked like they're a team that hadn't spoken for quite some time, maybe hadn't played together for a month or so. There wasn't any refrags, there wasn't any backing each other up, and now they're leveled up and they've got no timeouts left to use.
Speaking on that, yeah, 100%. Honestly, I feel like I have been brutal to SM, but they've managed to step it up absolutely beautifully here. They've gotten those rounds back. They've tied it all up. In CrownZero, they've just fallen off here. It's been like a complete opposite trend, just like how they both started the league. One went winning, one went losing, and that's exactly what we're seeing now. Sfam having a very possible comeback to send us to Cafe here, but you need all players in the game to be able to do that. And yes, Vaughn kind of dropped double digits at first, and then we haven't seen him since. 3-8 next to his name. We haven't seen much from him. It's mostly been Ellie and Remy stepping up to the task to get aggressive and find the picks when they're needed. But right now, you're going to need everything to confirm it, and we're going to be seeing gunfights ensue onto the roof, and there's no way Kashi loses that gunfight or should be even contesting a man on the roof.
I do wonder about the utility, about the wisdom in putting Blitz up on the roof at that point. Again, I've said it several times so far this game, neither of these teams are really using Blitz to their maximum efficiency. If you want to use a Blitz, go straight to site. Maybe not necessarily rush, but have some direct action and have the courage to go ahead and stamp your authority. They use them Blitz very, very passively, and I think it's not really how it's designed to be played. Scopes, they'll pick up a couple of kills now, but it's all going to come back even. 3v3 in a flurry of activity as we hit the minute mark, Sino.
Wow, I don't even understand how Nook managed to win or lose that gunfight. My apologies. Wow. Quick hop on that camera. I think it was a bulletproof camera here for Vaughn, in a perfect adaptation to do so indeed. And I'm kind of liking Sfam now. Really waking up here. Might send us to map 3 as Vaughn wins his gunfight. It completely rids the pressure from that lounge area. The verticality has not been established because guess what? They don't have a soft breacher to start working on these floors. You're just gonna have a Maverick take the task of having to get lucky, and now CrownZero, for the first time since the first round, are looking to be going down in rounds here. Maverick being put in an absolute pinch, case loose, and there was no way that he was going to manage to win that round. And ladies and gentlemen, Sfam match point their own map, and we might go to map 3 if they can continue this level of coordination.
Yeah, only the second time that Sfam have taken the lead of a map so far. The first time was in round 3 back on map 1, and see, CrownZero, they won almost every single round subsequently. But from here, round 11, this is coming off the back of a lot of, Sfam momentum. It's been building up very steadily over the course of this second map. 3 rounds on the trot now that they've won. They've pulled it back from 5-3 to 6-5, and now they're on match point. This is their chance to stay alive and take us through to that deciding map. And CrownZero, once again, we're seeing these miscommunications, maybe these misplays. Dipsy playing on a blitz, but then at a minute and a half, still being up on the roof. Like, there's just these certain little aspects of this team's play which I don't know where they've gone, but they've looked like a completely different beast as soon as they went onto their attacking half. And maybe it was uncharitable to suggest that 4-2 wasn't a good scoreline for Sfam, because now they're on defense, and it's quite clear to me here now that they know exactly what they're doing. They're playing a fantastic defensive half.
They had one job: maintain the lead. But I said it. I said it. This is a very defender-sided map. Once you bring the right operators, and a comeback is always very possible. And Sfam, having their own map, they stepped up to the task, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. I was talking on how Yesvon was kind of just sitting around doing his own thing and not really performing, but he found a very essential pick here for his team last round. And now we're seeing all of the slack being picked up by the team, and now they're starting to play as a uniform, as a team. They're playing together, and that's exactly what you want from SFAM if they are really trying to send this to map 3. The basement site being next up right now, they have finally brought a wall deny, and the task is going to be clear the roamers, get the wall open, and try to get the plant down, hopefully.
That call's going to be absolutely key because we did see Rashi deep roaming up on that top floor earlier. Not sure if they're still there, but it doesn't look like the roam clear has flushed them out at all. And there you can see the Scopos drone up on top of Zainri as they're going to be able to swap their operator straight up to that top floor and capitalize on this momentum that Eastbourne's just picked up on Scopes. Scopes, prolific fragger, not top this game, but so far has been absolutely key to CrownZero's ability to thin the herd. Only Fleeks has done better. They'll take no further point in this round. Match point 6-5 to West Ham, 5-4 in terms of operator count. The second call comes out at a minute and a half as the attack comes through, and Loki, hearing that call, pushes through. But Eastfon, they'll pick up a second, they'll pick up a
Oh my
third as they get the
god!
refrags across. Eastfon on this second floor, tearing it up and really damaging the core of this CrownZero offense. They've still got the hard breach, they can open all the angles, and they've got a minute on the clock. There's time. There's time to rotate. There's time to reconfigure where you're approaching from, but it'll keep tick, tick, tock, and Sino all round long.
Taking care of 3 crucial operators. Your soft breach gone, your roam clear gone, and you've lost your top fragger. What do you do now? Fleek's managing to get a kill of his own, but was it a little too late? How is there no response to Yesvon? He had Jackal tracks, he had everything on him, and it's a 4v1. It looks like, ladies and gentlemen, we are potentially heading to Cafe Dostoevsky, as you have Dipsy really trying to prolong the ending of this match, but there's only so much you can do with a DMR and an SMG, as the clock is just going tick-tock, and it looks like everybody is going to take a stationary position, and that's Zerino, to send us to map 3. We're going to Cafe. SM stepped it up, and now this is truly going to be about who is more hungry to take it home.
Absolutely fantastic there from Sfam, defying what I think you thought, what I know I thought, which was that CrownZero they'd established too much momentum, proving us wrong. And what things you love to see, and they all stepped up, didn't they? They all really galvanized themselves and pushed on and made a real effort to level us up there. Cafe Dostoevsky, as you see, but it comes off the back of what you'd have to say is complete CrownZero collapse.
I don't even know what to say. We had them looking absolutely beautiful in the first half. They managed to oppose, and they took the rounds home on defense. Nighthaven is a brutal map, and they showed us even on those first 2 attacking rounds they had that they were up for the task, but just all fell apart. At some point, they completely, at one point, just said, we're not going to go by the playbook anymore. We're going to drop the hatch, no uniform play, and we're going to completely toss any form of teamwork. And honestly, that cost them the map, and that will send them to a map 3.
Map 3, that'll be coming very, very shortly. Both of these teams, they're going to need a minute or two to recover, and I imagine you and I will need much the same. So we'll be going to a very short break, but don't go anywhere, because the deciding map, Cafe Dostoevsky, in this, one of the deciding rounds of Swiss, is coming up in just a few minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we come back to you from the break to present Cafe Dostoevsky. It is map 3 after a brilliant comeback. A beautiful display of Rainbow Six Siege coming in here from SFAM. They will be here to either prove if they can continue this, or if they're going to let CrownZero build up their momentum. This break was very much needed after that display by CrownZero in the dying moments of Night Haven Labs. Delta, how are you, my man?
I'm very good. Very good after a little bout of CCC. Complete CrownZero collapse over on Nighthaven Labs. Jumping now, we're going to be getting straight into this third map, which I think is what everyone, you, me, the viewers, we all want, because this match, it just doesn't quit. It just keeps giving. And we're going to see Brava taking off the board. Brava's been a bit of an ever-present in this CrownZero attack so far, so it's interesting to see them ban it out here.
Now, I'm seeing Blackbeard is open for grabs. It's going to be a little bit of an interesting pick. I'll be quite intrigued to see how Sfam is going to be able to integrate him into the roster. It'll be a little confusing, but I guess we'll see. This is sometimes an attacker defined map if you can play it correctly. Once you get rid of the Mira, the Azami, and right now that last pick might be that deciding factor. Right now, SM have a lot to prove. Go do CrownZero, and what better for the script, for the plot, if we go to 7-7 overtime? Because if you guys didn't know, this is unlimited OT. So, what would be a better ending than just going, to 25 rounds until we are done?
God, it was the Team Empire and Team G2. Uh, that six invitational grand final. I think it was 6 years ago. That initially brought me into appreciating Rainbow Six Esports, and I think that went on for what was it, 34, 35 rounds before we saw a conclusion. God knows how anyone would cast that nowadays. That's a heinously long time to be engaged in the game. I think the players were struggling after it for some time, and that was their first map. They'll be the last map for both of these teams. For one of them, it'll be the last map in the competition. For one of them, it'll just be the end of the beginning. The winner from this will go on to our knockout stage, and the loser, well, unlucky. Your time's up.
Unlucky indeed. It's all about what you can do on this map specifically. It's a little bit of neutral ground, but CrownZero did have the round differential, if I'm not mistaken. They won 7-3 and they lost 7-5, so that 2-round differential allows them to pick the sides, obviously meaning they're going to take defense here. And hopefully they are going to show us something better here, or the opposite way around. I might have gotten it mixed up here, but it's all about the external play and how you can play to mold this map to your liking. Twitch is definitely going to be a crucial operator for the amount of utility being brought here, and that mid floor is going to be brought. Something is going to need to be brought for this mid floor. Wow, I'm having a horrible time trying to pronounce the word RAM, and that is going to be the main operator needed to be brought to be able to play verticality here.
Yeah, it's very interesting that CrownZero, they've opted not to go to this primary site. They're still going to need to hold on that top floor, and you can see there they've got people playing over towards the west side of the building, towards that cold cocktail bulk area. That's an important area to hold, because from there you can affect impact over onto the rest of this site. But not going to that primary site means that they can establish this bit of momentum, CrownZero, if they do win it. But then they can expand upon that, and they can continue to collapse down around to the site and then save that top site for next round. So that's a very interesting decision from them, and it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. CrownZero, they've got a man here on Pixel, that would be Scopes. Scopes has pretty much been the prolific fragger for this CrownZero team. I'm not sure you would want anyone else over Scopes holding this Pixel angle.
I don't think I have seen this double shield setup on a deep freezer and the other one sitting close here in the cigar lounge corner. I don't think I've seen that before, but right now it's proving effective as we are at the 1 minute 14 mark and we are finally seeing a first pick here for Gypsy. As Yespawn finally claims first blood, but Scopes on the quick refrag. Again, who else but him? And Rashi still holding the angles. We were talking here about the time. You need to be mindful of the time. The kid gets a kill onto Yespawn, and guess what? The attacker's at a deficit, and you have 50 seconds with 2 players. 3 players now on Windows. Are we just going to sit around and watch as your teammates get slaughtered one by one?
It's like in racing. To finish first in a race, you must first finish. Well, to win in Siege, you must first enter the building. And with 30 seconds on the clock, only now we're really seeing these attackers enter the building. And even then, it's extremely timid, Sino. There's no real pushing, there's no sprinting, there's no real action, not creating anything. For 10 seconds, we've just had the Twitch sat there. They are generating angles over onto site, and they can start clearing out this reading room. They'll find a Malusi, just slaughtering there in the corner, but they won't be able to pick up the refrag as Fleeks will pick up a double onto the Zerino, and the third one will come out from Scopes onto Elise. 2 kills all around, and that'll be all she wrote. CrownZero, they pick up their first round. Do you know, I keep pronouncing it CrownZero as though I'm casting Damn One Gear, and I'm thinking it might be a problem. It's CrownZero, isn't it? I'm not going insane.
At this point, just call them CWZ, or as you said before, CCC. That is a team you can call them because that's all we've seen. But a beautiful first round here to give us a nice first impression. You need all of the defensive rounds you can get on Cafe because once you go on to that attacking side, it's either going to be very, very good or very, very bad if you cannot get the windows down to your liking here. And that's what we saw essentially here from Sfam. They played repels, they played on the windows until everybody was dead, and they were forced to readapt and get very aggressive to an area they thought was the site, but it was mining. Right now, we're going to Reading Room instead. Fireplace Reading Room is a very good site just because of the verticality that can be established, and we've seen CrownZero really just go for it by just holding upstairs and waiting for the clock to run out. They got 2 very important first picks here, and they also unintentionally made the kit go loose, meaning the Gridlock had to rotate all the way over from the rappel on the windows to grab it, drop the hack, and try to force herself into the site. So, not the best of holds here coming from Sfam, as they need to kind of ease back on the time and be mindful that there is a limit to this clock. To push in as a team, as that's not something we've been seeing, has been on and off, on and off, on and off.
Yeah, those early kills were really, they really stopped this momentum. They halted this Sfam team were, in their tracks. CrownZero, they're going to go for pretty much exactly the same holds. They're going to have Scopes up there, playing not on the Goyo this time. They're going to be playing on a Malusi, and Goyo has been moved over onto Dipsy, who suffered that early Echo kill now. So there's a couple of differences being made in their lineup from player to player, but broadly, it's the exact same hold. Notably, again, Sino, they're going to that secondary site. They're not tertiary site even. They're not contesting this top floor, and I'm wondering if maybe CrownZero aren't that confident up on bar.
I mean, it is a site. Oh, what a shot. Scopes meeting his maker this time. No kills before he does so. But talking at those sites, bar, that is exactly why a lot of teams like to avoid it. Those windows, that external play, the utility, there's so much buildup that you can do before you even take a gunfight here. You can sit outside the building and wait. But yes, Vaughn goes boots on ground, tries to make his way into the building, and gets taken off here by Dipsy, and that will leave them at a 4v4 stalemate as we approach the 1:30 mark.
You can see there's Zay over on Cocktail. The audio will have gone out, and they'll have seen that the window got popped. Zay, they'll retreat. And again here, it seems like there's not that much in the way of momentum, even just to get into the building. Most of this Sfam side, they're still just now sauntering into all these little nooks and crannies. CrownZero, they only have to defend for a minute now. They've had 3 minutes of just kind of enjoying themselves, slowing this team down, and now they're leaving all their utility behind. They've still got all the intel that they need, the bulletproof camera there, giving out all the intel as that time starts to tick away. And Sfam, they've not left themselves a huge amount of time to open up Vert, which, given that Zay went down to that first floor, is going to take a while. They've not left themselves much time to start opening up angles, and it's just going to come down to, can you frag out?
And guess what? Even if they do, if this Echo is hiding correctly, those Yokais are going to deny the plant. He has 4 Sonic Booms, and by the time these Volcans go away, there will be around 20 to 15 seconds left on the clock, and that is going to be absolutely crucial. The bridge getting open. They managed to get rid of the electrifiers off the wall. They got rid of the claw, but now what is the last step? It's a 4v3. The bodies are starting to fly down here. Sfam went up, but only temporarily. 3v3, 6 seconds. Why aren't you trying to walk in this site? Cade trying to get lucky. His gun will do the job. Trying to resort to the pistol. Ace, no avail. He'll stay alive, but the round will still go to CrownZero. And what did we just witness?
Just too slow. Too slow, Sino. I mean, when you're attacking, you need to go and chase the game, and it's maybe lost, maybe somewhere in terms of, you know, maybe there's a bit of fatigue involved and things like that. I think Sfam, they've only gone to the full 3 rounds once so far in the competition. They won that against No Offense, but it wasn't in this same context where it's do or die. I think they're in this scenario here now where they're struggling to create. They're struggling to find things to actually go ahead and do. We saw a lot there of just holding angles, and then when it came time to execute onto site, that's cool and all, but if you've only got 20 seconds, you need to be damn sure that you can pick up these kills very, very quickly. Now, we know that they can. They've had a couple of rounds, particularly on that first map where they didn't win out, but they fragged out very, very quickly and bounced back. We're just not seeing evidence that they've still got that kind of fire in them here on attack. Going down to that basement now, so this is what is typically regarded as your secondary pick going down to the basement, and here we do see, whilst they have got players, holding, still setting up bits and bobs of this first floor, we have got player moving up to that second floor, ready to hold and protect from that third. But Loki, they're going to get picked up very, very quickly. They'll narrowly escape, and even now they're very pinned down. They'll get pinned in by Rashi, and that'll be a very early frag. Only 30 seconds down for Sfam.
Again, they found first blood here for Sfam, and now they need to be mindful of their time. Tactic I've been seeing CrownZero use. They have an operator they don't want to be located, hide away until the drone phase is over. They have the Cade hide, so there's a chance that Sfam don't know the fact that there is a Cade and he is trying to deny these walls. And if this is the case, then they're going to have an even harder time trying to be able to open up these breaches. So you're gonna put on top the wall staying closed on a team that cannot manage their time very well. So it's a little bit of an interesting round. They're going up to the third floor with 1:50 left on the clock. They have a body in hand, so they have a little bit of a buffer here, but there is a lot to be done. The question is, can they do it in a timely manner? And I think that's been the question we've been asking since that first map. There's been the ups and downs of Sfam, but that is the most crucial one, is how can they bide their time? As verticality is being established, everything they are doing is by the book. But can they do it before that clock starts to hit its last phase?
Yeah, it's the first time so far on Dostoevsky where they really hit their timetable in terms of opening up the objective, setting up their prep. But here you can see CrownZero, they're holding in some maybe not so typical angles. Scope's getting picked off, making it a 5v3, but Fleeks on this smoke is going to be very, very dangerous to these attackers, as we see a bit of an overload now on that freezer side. Only one of them playing really anywhere else, and Dipsy ready to make the calls if they need to, but they're going to rapidly become the only player left on the board. Half the site not even visible to them. All they can do is start looking for picking up these 1 or 2 little kills, but Gridlock, they'll swing. Esport, the all reliable, making it a flawless round.
A little confusing to me here. I just don't understand. We're seeing so many displays here of good and bad rounds coming in from both teams. Sfam, they'll randomly just snap into action here, jump on the mistakes, and find the gaps of CrownZero, find a kill, find 2 kills, and eventually make that a flawless round. CrownZero really avoiding that upstairs fight, as they are going to use the objective parameters to unlock that mid floor yet again, and they're going to stick to the agenda that they want of just having mining and reading rooms be theirs, and just try to keep running out their defensive rounds by using these 2 sites. But honestly, the charade is going to end soon. You need to go upstairs one way or another, but Sfam kind of letting on the gas here. Finally, we're seeing them wake up, and maybe if they can take this round home, we're going to see a much more uniform and a much more coordinated Sfam.
Yeah, it's an interesting strategy that CrownZero have got of not opting to go for the primary site at this point, having now lost a round, committing instead to going back to where they were on round 1. Now, CrownZero, they lost their Echo very, very early in this round, and they won it off the back of some really good frag work, both from Scopes and from Fleeks. So this round, I think Dipsy needs to commit and say, actually, no, I really need to stay alive this round and not over peak, as we saw them get caught, or rather, as we saw Fleeks get caught early on around this time in the last round.
all about biding your time, and I feel like you kind of just hit the nail on its head right there. These players are all very interesting. They have their very own attributes here. But all right now, the most common trend is a lot of them don't have that time management skill. That's something they need to get rid of. They need to break it down because they have 2 more rounds after this to continue to attack this map. And if they can manage, and maybe, just maybe, they'll be able to claim themselves victor after a crazy comeback. CrownZero, though, they're looking a little loose here after losing 2 first picks 2 rounds in a row here. They need to also pick it up. So timeouts are available. Both teams have the opportunities to pause, say we need to take a break, and let's crank out our issues. Hopefully, they'll take that opportunity as this is the last map. There's no second chances after this.
Yeah, this is where that survivor mentality kicks in. CrownZero, we know they can do it. They've done it for the 2 rounds previous. This is Sfam's first real experience of it this season. That kind of, survive or die mentality. Here we can see, Sfam still a little bit reluctant to commit to getting into the building, only now jumping in and starting to put their pressure on this top floor. But they will have almost total top floor control. Nikki, they'll pick one back. They'll say not for free. There's there's an admission fee here as they'll take on Sfam.
Bulletproof camera will do the job just as good as that Valkyrie and will get a quick C4 kill in the case loose, but in obtainable distance for Remy. Right now, just trying to get the hatch open. He got around that Kaid slot very easily. You can't walk in! The door's broken and an easy kill for Dipsy. Honestly, served to him on a silver platter as Sereno just completely disregards the door. He walks right into the bullets and Fleeks gets a kill of his own. The attackers being picked off one by one, and that is the importance of teamwork here as they are all slowly being deprived of that teamwork. Doesn't retrieve the case and goes for that head-on action. Cade winning that gunfight. CrownZero say, if you have a flawless round, I need one too. And that's exactly what they'll respond with.
Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you, said CrownZero as they pick up their 3rd round on their defensive half. Pretty good rounds for them. They held their ground very, very well. They didn't really get sucked into these 1v1s without that refragability that they did when they went down to Kitchen Prep, where they were losing in 1s and 2s. And they will respond to Sfam's flawless round 3 with a flawless round 4. And I think CrownZero, they're really having fun playing on these tertiary sites. Their setup, it's really strong, and they all seem to really lock in and know what they're doing on these tertiary sites. And in contrast for Sfam, you don't really scrim to take these tertiary sites. I think a lot of teams, they'll expect to take these tertiary sites just because on average they're not as strong to hold, they're not as easy to hold. I would probably argue that if we went up to this top floor, that Sfam would take that because they've scrimmed for it and they know how to do it. But CrownZero, because they're keeping this Sfam team off balance by going to these tertiary sites, I'm wondering if Sfam have actually said, okay, we've got an answer to this, or if this is just keeping them continually off balance on their attacking rounds.
I think mining being the first site was a curveball, but I think fireplace and reading isn't all too an uncommon sight when you bring a castle, but we haven't seen CrownZero bring that castle. They've been playing it a little haywire here, and it's been working for them. That chaoticness, the chaoticness they've been bringing to each side has been working for them. They've completely avoided upstairs, and they have one more round until they've completely avoided the upstairs hold until they switch on to defense, which is going to be something I don't think I've seen on Cafe before, but it's working for them right now. They deny the verticality. They pick everybody off one by one, and the only round that Sfam has gotten is because they allowed themselves to get individually isolated, and right now we're just not seeing that for these mid-floor sites. There's 5 of you alive. Why is nobody retrieving the case? Also a point I've been wanting to make for the last 6 rounds. They just keep leaving the case on the roof for fun. The case has been more loose than it has been in an operator's hands. I think all 2 maps we've seen them attack. I'm completely dumbfounded when I keep seeing this.
I've never actually noticed that, It's quite interesting that and this is where I say maybe these tertiary sites, reading and dining, and then mining and dining, one of them is slightly better than the other, but they're both arguably tertiary because, typically you would expect to go top floor, then you maybe expect to go kitchen dining in terms of how strong the sites are. But here, I think they've just been not completely off balance, and it's really hard for them to formulate a counter to that in the moment. Half the round is gone. Only a few small gunfights, not any kills coming out so far. Slow round for Sfam. They have got top control now, and they do have the operators to start opening up these angles, as they should have been doing for the last 4 rounds, onto these CrownZero attackers, but still not able to take any lives, not able to stamp their authority just yet.
They begin to approach that 1-minute mark. There's still lots to do here. All bodies are on hand, on deck to help out. And as I usually say, that the caster's curse hits and bodies start to drop like flies. But criticality, again, being established with 45 seconds left. Where was this a minute ago? You were still outside repelled on the windows. And I still have to point out, the case is on the roof and loose. Have we lost our minds? I don't think they're going for gunfights here, as Ace finally finds it. Scopes gets a kill in that meantime, and Ellie has that pincer in between the sights here, but Cade looks to be fighting it alongside, and that'll just be Frost to walk up and just take care of it. That'll be 2 picks here. You have verticality established, but only for so long. You're losing your claw on sight as you're being picked off one by one. Can we be seeing back-to-back flawless rounds as the quick flick from Fleeks takes care of the job, the round, and the team? They're struggling now, as now it looks like CrownZero, the ones we've seen on Border, are back in business.
Yeah, clinical. 2 flawless back to back. That's a real statement of intent, is that. And now we will finally see this CrownZero team taking us to that top site. So again, maybe subverting the expectations of this Sfam team. We're saying, okay, no, now we'll go to the top floor, because you don't really expect that for a round 6 here, do you? You expect it for your round 1, you maybe expect it for your round 4, but it's just not something that they'll be expecting, and it will keep this Sfam team off balance. See, CrownZero, they're playing a very, very strong game, not only in their strategy, not only in the frags that they're making, but also in how they're controlling kind of the meta aspects of the game, how they're controlling the tempo of the game as we go forwards.
I think as we approach the attacker defenders switch, the best outcome SM can walk out of here with is a 4-2. And if not, a 5-1 scoreline. We were talking about how different those numbers look. A 5-1 comeback is just almost impossible here, especially on a team that's playing like this. We've seen what happens when CrownZero gains the lead. They absolutely run away with it, especially when they switch on to attack next. Haven wasn't quite the case, but we did see that on Border, so it is going to be a little bit of an interesting switch. But right now, Sfam, you still have a timeout, and you have a lot of time to kind of refresh on what you're doing wrong, but we're just not seeing the initiative being taken to refresh their minds and try to take this team head on. But we're finally seeing them adapt upstairs, as they don't have another choice except for downstairs. This will be interesting. We've seen this team avoid upstairs and the basement as long as possible. Kind of intrigued now to see how they're going to try to play bar.
Even approaching the building, they're very cautious and looking for spawn peaks, only making it to the roof with about 30 seconds on the board. It's just everything's a little bit laboured with this Sfam side. It doesn't seem like they're overly comfortable even approaching, and it shows just how badly this CrownZero side has knocked them off balance. They will know, they will by now be aware that they are playing on this top site, and we can see Sfam starting to drone, starting to take control of these windows. Notably, no one playing on Pixel at the moment, although they do have a player lurking in bathroom, ready to dip out and take the angle if needed.
Right now, no mute could be absolutely essential for this utility flying in, because they do have a Flores on the board. Notably, no zombie, and they've completely reinforced off the bathroom head holes. Not something I've seen before, but again, to each in their own. I think these guys have had a very traumatic sight playing up here before, so they have a very certain idea on how they're going to play it. Again, the case is loose on the roof. I don't know how many times we are going to see this in a game right before you are either going to get eliminated or punch a ticket into the elimination stage. But right now, Ellie gets it down, and there is a res very, very possible with that Rotero charge flying in. Can you shoot it in a timely manner? No, because he's going to be going for the shields instead, and now the attackers have a little bit of a buffer time to be able to slow down and just blow things up.
Yeah, it's interesting that CrownZero have allowed Sfam to just take the control of the areas that they have, but that'll be a lovely shot from Fleeks through these open bars. right the way through onto default. Fantastic kill from Fleeks there. Lovely long range kill that they won't have been expecting. That's the Nomads off the board. That's your flank denial operator. Not able to take as much territory as you'd like, as confidently as you may like there. The Grim going out. That's going to really seal Scopes in Freezer. They know exactly where he is, and he's only one shot away from going down. So that'll be a pretty easy kill if they can find the angle, but the kills will come through.
Days.
Nikki onto Elise, 3v5 as we hit the final 30 seconds. They still know where Fleeks is, they still know where Scopes is, but it's not going to matter all that much, as effectively we're in a 5v2.
They had such a good hold on this site, but just not going to be the case any longer. Rashi's downed. He's too far away to be res here. And Zerino, who do you think you are? Thinks he's Bolo, tries to fly in the window, taken out here by a frost map. And now you are confined to a freezer with nothing but a pistol. And you can't even win the first gunfight, as that is a double kill here for the Sentry. And that is the switch, with CrownZero emerging victorious. 6 rounds defending and only 1 loss. That is a beautiful record to have.
I was half expecting to see another 4-2 split, you know. We've had 2 of them so far in CrownZero's favor, but they'll go one better. They'll make it 5-1 here in their defensive half. And now they're only 2 rounds. There's only 2 rounds between them and the what would be relative security of the knockout bracket. And I mean, it's indicative of a fantastic comeback, and it shows the resilience that they had that almost arguably embarrassing loss in map 2, where, you know, they started to just completely lose their composure. Here now against Sfam on Cafe Dostoyevsky, they're more clinical than we've seen them all game long. CrownZero 5-1 to the good in round 7. Is this kind of done already, or do Sfam have something up their sleeves to throw this CrownZero offense off? They had the very smart strats, you know, kind of these meta strats in their defensive half, CrownZero, and now it's all down to Sfam to try and hold the line. CrownZero, they're chasing the victory.
I think this is the beginning of the end. Again, 5-1, very demoralizing to be seeing as you load up into every round after this. There is a lot to be done here for Sfam, and CrownZero just needs to continue doing what they were doing previously, and they have sealed the victory. Quick old C4 here from Ellie might be able to grab him a kill, but I want to focus more on the attacker's side. We have a Kali for some reason. We have a Blackbeard, not unexpected, but not prioritized by Sfam, and a Deimos. This is going to be a quite interesting hold here by Sfam, and I'm kind of intrigued to see how CrownZero is going to respond to it with these operators.
They're not going to fall afoul of any spawn peaks there, and it's interesting that they've stayed looking at the spawn peak right the way up until almost the first minute mark. Not really the most useful position to be in. At that point, I would suggest maybe rotate off and having a look at doing some deep roaming. A minute passes by, and like Sfam on their attack, we're yet to see CrownZero really start to enter the building. Kali dropping down to the bottom floor there, and it looks like they're going to be rotating around.
Blackbeard being used here for that map control that only those dream of. A very interesting run out here by Yesvon, as he's remained outside for 5 seconds. Lost a good, incredible amount of his health here, but there is a dock him waiting for him. He can get around to that corner alongside with this mute. Yesvon, his fate has been sealed, but Ellie has an opportunity to be stimmed, and that's exactly what will happen. Cigar is next on the chopping block here for the attackers, and again, it is very structural here coming in from CrownZero. It's the one you expect. It's the way that they play that we would expect after we've seen it on Border. They are just taking everything slowly, and they have a minute left to take their time and execute. No C4s left on the board, and that minute mark is starting to approach.
Pixel being held there. They don't get baited in by shooting the ace charge just yet. They'll pick up the kill over onto Fleeks. That'll be a big kill off the board. 40 seconds left. That was the first person, realistically, that was in the building apart from Nikki, and that is taken off the board. Blackbeard now kind of pushing alone. Sfam happy to just dig in like a tick. Dipsy, they'll pick up Rashri and making it a 4v3 as we go into the dying 30 seconds of round 7.
Quick flick here by Remy to take care of Nikki. That is your Blackbeard taken care of. Heavy amounts of map control are now going to be lost. Callie actually finding a pick with a sniper rifle. Was not expecting that, but 17 seconds left, and there's one man in the building who was taken care of. Callie, are you really going to rappel into heaven and expect a positive outcome? That answer quickly answered, as now we are finding a 1v3 prove very difficult here, and he walks right into
Oh,
a frost mat. He walks directly into a frost mat to seal Sfam's fate. And wow, they are still in this, and I don't even know how. We were one round shy away from the match point, but a frost mat stopped that and pushes us now to 2-5.
I would argue that that is more rounds that CrownZero lost than a round that SFAM won. And that's because CrownZero, they've seen that you need to get in the building sooner rather than later, realistically. Particularly on Cafe Dostoevsky, where, there's certain phases to an attack, particularly on that top side. They didn't do this. They fell foul of the same things that they've watched SFAM fall afoul of in their attacking half. So to do the same things is maybe a little bit criminal. And SFAM, I don't think, did anything necessarily incredible on their defense. They just held the line, and CrownZero almost walked into where these bullets were going to be. The swing, particularly from Pixel, I think is the one that broke the back of this CrownZero attack. The ace charge getting thrown out was pretty inspired not to just immediately try and pop the ace and give the intel. And I'd argue that's a lack of droning from CrownZero's side to say, yes, there is someone there. You probably shouldn't stop looking at Pixel. So that's a very well won round from SFAM, just by letting CrownZero make the mistakes. So we're going to go down to the bottom site now, down to kitchen. This is your secondary site. It'll be interesting to see if CrownZero reform how they go here. They're going to get started nice and early with a breach into Freezer Hallway. But what, sign up, is this Freezer setup?
Hell. Now, this setup is not all that bad, but it is horrible when you don't have a castle. There's too much external play at hand here for the attackers to be able to lay back and say, yeah, we have the grip on site. And that's what we've seen coming here from CrownZero when they tried to hold it. They did all of the same exact setups, but they didn't bring a castle to be able to close off those cheeky angles, and they paid the price and lost one of the 2 rounds they've lost in the series. So it's going to be quite brutal to see how they're going to adapt, but I think anything can happen after that last round we've just seen. Sfam really kind of just go with the flow, swing when they feel like it, and get the first pick just like that.
Yeah, again, onto the Blitz, kind of unsupported, kind of not being used to their full effect. I think any shield operator, and I'll include Blackbeard in that, they're the most effective when they've got people around them to work with. You can't take a shield operator and go ahead of the herd, as it were.
Right now, just all quiet on the western front. All that is left to do is just run up the clock here for the defenders. They've gotten that first pick. They've gotten rid of the men that can get a lot of map control. But right now, it is very essential they don't get refragged. As the words were on my tongue, yes, Vaughn gets refragged out 40 seconds after the initial kill. And now we're approaching the 1-minute mark. No verticality has been established. And I don't think a hatch has been opened either. They're not aware that there's people camping out in the freezer corners, and that is going to be very painful to deal with later in the round. When you're pinched for time, you don't have a drone waiting for you, and you are just honestly put in a horrible position, because this is going to have to be very rushed for CrownZero to emerge victorious without the clock running out. 45 seconds left on the clock. What are they going to be able to do?
Not much as it happens. You would hope there was something a bit climactic coming after you said that, but the verticality is not finding any of these defenders able to hunker down in these certain little angles. It is going to constrict their movement somewhat, but these throw balls, they're going to come out. They're not going to be used to any real great effect. The swing coming out from the shotty, boy, is to no avail. And here we can see Sfam now starting to spread out a bit and recapture territory that they had already lost. And with only 15 seconds left on the board, is it too little, too late? Fleets taken off the board. 4v3, smoke down, and they're inside, but down goes the diffuser. It's down to Scopes. He's still on the first floor. He is nowhere, and the defenders will win on time.
Comeback is looking more and more realistic as we see Sfam defend and CrownZero attack. No wonder they were trying to go the middle floor out of every single site, because wow, they cannot attack nor defend that kitchen site. That was interesting indeed. That little space at the end, that little buffer time where they got to hop out the window, try to capture the space of freezer, that was beautiful. But honestly, you cannot expect a mute or a smoke to go down with their eyes closed. They have a shotgun and they're going to put it to use. Double kill here from Remy, denied the plant and single-handedly dismantled the attacker's play.
Not very ideal if you're CrownZero. Again, both teams on this on their attacks here, just very, very slow. Not really any impetus to go out and change the game, and they're conceding arguably daft kills very, very early. Gonna go now to this reading and dining site. So this is again the tertiary site. This is where CrownZero spent a lot of their time on their own defensive half. We're going to see these castles coming out, and what I would argue is not quite an exact kind of generic top site solution, but it's generally you hold this west side of the site, you hold this cocktail area, and you maintain those sight lines over the areas where generally you will want to prevent verticality.
Couldn't have worded it better, and just look at that setup from the attackers. They look like they're going to want to prefer verticality, and I'm very much hoping the fact that they will use the boogie drones before we approach the 1:30 mark. They have the map control, they have Cabana for the hatches, they have everything you could possibly need for a post-plant situation. They came even over-prepared, but right now, over-prepared is what you need when you are starting to give rounds out away like charity. It was 1-5, and now Sfam are rapidly approaching. And just because you have gotten a 4-round advantage doesn't mean you can count them out, because they are showing us that they're hungry and they want this action all for themselves.
A minute down already now, and we're still yet to see the attackers really truly grace onto the building. Nikki will take some damage for their trouble, the only person in the building, and they'll eat some explosive for their trouble. Very low, no mistakes allowed from them anymore, but they do have the shield, and the claymore prevents the roam from Remy from coming to anything. So they'll actually take the man advantage early on as they establish control over white stairs. That's key with these roamers, but as the jump comes up, Dipsy puts themselves at risk, but Zay doesn't see them, doesn't see the open window, and will fall. The rappel there very clearly on cocktail balcony, but with the man advantage, do you see any way back for this defending Sfam side?
We were just talking about bringing the castle this, bring the castle that. It's just gotten blown out from under your feet, and you just completely disregard it. And that's what leads to your death. Interesting performance here from Sfam. They were on a roll, and it looks like that roll has come to a stop as they are down 3 bodies. Verticality established, hatch is open, and the attacker circling like sharks, waiting to claim a round that should be theirs if they do not blunder. Right now, Rashi has the ability to deny white stairs, and that is all that is important. Might be able to actually line up a pixel peek onto the window here. Can't quite see it, but Ipsy's playing way too passive for it to matter anyways. We're seeing Goyo here use his Vulcan canisters to be able to deny entry into B site. You shall not pass. And Rashi has the power position. This could be the biggest play right now if he stays alive. Can he get the kill? Is it going to be the outcome they expect here? Trying to walk down the stairs, instantly taken out here by Spawn. Dipsy taking care of Rashi, getting a kill, but getting quickly traded out here for Nikki. The site is so imperative to take control of, but wow, the quick flood doesn't even matter as the Blackbeard, Haban, and Nomad all running at Goyo at the same time, claiming his life and pushing us to match point. And CrownZero are winning by a sliver. Sfam are slowly but surely starting to catch up here. Just look at that round and its display of utility.
What's more to say? I mean, it's the man advantage. It's not looking out of these open windows where because you've heard the kills come out. You know that the enemy are. It's these kills whilst you're rotating back to site. What happened there was they had top control and they were holding it, but when the call came through for them to rotate off, they were getting caught and isolated in their 1s and 2s as they came back. And that's what drove us very, very early on to this 5v2 scenario. And from there, all CrownZero had to do was try and collapse in around these defenders as they scrabbled to retain something of a coherent defense. But there's just too many angles and too few eyes and guns looking at them. 5v2 turns into 4v1, 3v1, but then it's just a numbers game. You're not going to win after 1v3, even if they're all coming from the same angle, because they can just scatter their runs. They can give the call outs, and even if time's on your side, that amount of guns point that you're not going to win out. 6-3 map point and game point for CrownZero. 3 minutes is all that waits between them and booking their place in the knockout stage. And for Sfam, we've said it several times, but you've got to have a survival mindset now in this bit of siege, because this is it, Sino. This is live or die.
Right now, it is only live or die. The only person that seems to understand that memo is Arashi. Had beautiful positioning last round. If they had just one more body on deck, they would have been able to maybe squeeze by a victory. But again, bodies always outmatch the guns, and it was a horrible position for one man to be left in, having to deal with the stairs, mining, and the hop down from the balcony all at once. Can't just task one man at doing all of that by himself. Right now, they have one round to prove themselves to prolong the ending. Sfam, you all need to wake up to the call. You have one player on your team going positive. Who else is going to rise to the occasion? Because it looks like CrownZero locked in. Only one man going negative on their team, and they're all, regardless, bringing back the utility that is needed. They're bringing back map control, but hopefully this is going to be a round where we're not seeing sniper rifles rifle in from 30, 40 meters, and we're not seeing players bait into the last 10 seconds. I think we're going to see some action close range.
Yeah, halfway point of the round. No kills so far. Dipsy taking a lot of damage, though. Unable to find anything in return. Utility going out. They're killing off the intelligence. And the Blackbeard there in prime position over that new Balk area. But here we go. 1 minute 15 left. And we're still not seeing any kills coming out from either side. This is only going to benefit the defenders as time ticks away.
Oh, no.
First kill goes to Yes. That takes out Scopes. Absolutely key. Very, very powerful fragger for their team, and still S1 being challenged, but to no avail down in this mining area. 1 minute ticks down, and CrownZero don't look like they've got many ideas as Dipsy also gets taken off the board, and these attackers struggling to find their feet.
I mean, we've seen the Claymores come through from Dipsy. Why'd he just completely skip that very important step this time around? Rashi claims a very easy kill. The Volcan's dealing very, very effective damage to Kitty here as he's just trying to waltz into sight, trying to get an effective kill here, beaming, but it's mayhem all over the site here. Quick flicks from the Blackbeard, manages to win the gunfight, and they manage to turn it around. How do you manage to lose these bodies? Are you going home? And Nomad Loki confirms that there is no way in hell. We just watched a two-man advantage get thrown out the window like nothing, and the quick comeback with the Plenko down. What has just happened? What an ending. What? I don't even know. I don't even know how you can finish that off. All I can say, absolute cinema and well-deserved to CrownZero.
CrownZero, the Blackbeard, they walk in. Hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. All your attention here on me. And it works. Sfam, they turn all their guns to the Blackbeard. They ricochet from their shield. And all of the other players, every single one of them, manages to pick up a kill. CrownZero, a true team effort in that last round, sealing off what has been a miraculous run through our Swiss bracket. They've come right the way through Sino, from losing one, losing two, fighting that kind of knockout siege all the way through our bracket from 0 and 2. They beat all the way every single competitor right the way to find themselves in our 3-2 qualification. What a fairy tale. What a rags to riches story for CrownZero there.
Couldn't have worded it better. What an ending. That was not a round I expected to go in their favor, and that's a very well-deserved upper bracket position. Wow, just wow. An absolute beautiful display coming in here from CrownZero. Very well deserved towards them. They managed to prance on the mistakes of SFAM, and that brings us to the conclusion of today. Do you have any final remarks here?
Do you know, when we went to our season 9 grand final, the winners eventually were Molotov Gang. Molotov Gang didn't quite make it through the qualifiers of season 9, and then they went on a hero run and went on to win the whole thing. So one thing I will say is that anything is possible for Crown
Wow.
Zero. That was
Just
this match, and they've booked their place over in our knockout stage. So they're through. They're sitting pretty, and God, wouldn't you love to be in that Discord call right now? But for us on ESA, we're going to be going to our next match tomorrow. That's ESA. That's right. That's ESA Aspire. We've onboarded them. That's Owl Aspire going up against Entropy Gaming at the same time tomorrow evening.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. A matchup that you definitely want to catch. So make sure to come back around the same time we started. 1:30 my time. I think 19:30 your guys' time over in Europe. I hope you guys had an amazing time. Hopefully, we'll see Sfam back in the grand finals about that amazing comeback you were speaking on. If you are new here, make sure to drop a follow, subscribe if you're naughty, and have a great rest of your day or evening. Peace.